At the Dragon's Nest entrance exam, when every Eldragon child turns 7 years old, every kid is forced to face a nightmare called the Regeneration Stone, a bizarre rock that instantly heals scratches and throws brute force damage back 100 times harder. One student steps up full of confidence only to fail badly, ending up with broken arms just from trying to leave a mark on it. Even Langus is terrified because this is the kind of test that crushes dreams before school even begins. But while everyone else is panicking, Zeke is just disappointed. After surviving dragon blood as a baby and training alone for years, he expected something far more serious than a stupid rock. So when his turn finally comes, he shocks the entire academy by refusing to use a weapon at all. The other students laugh, thinking his fists are about to be destroyed. Instead, Zeke powers up, throws a single punch, and smashes the stone so hard that even the examiner is left speechless. In that one moment, the so-called weak, illegitimate child proves he is a complete monster, but before he reincarnated. Our MC wanted to reach the peak of martial arts, but he already knew that it was a position he could never achieve no matter how much he tried. However, he was desperate to achieve his goal, and because of this, he decided to follow a legend that was passed down through generations. Apparently, there was a golden fruit located within a sanctuary that was guarded by a dragon. This is a fruit that is said to grant immortality. And after a hard, long-fought battle against the dragon, our MC reached the golden fruit. He was surprised to see that the fruit actually existed, and he sat on the dragon's corpse like a real conqueror before making a move to eat the fruit. He is confident that by eating the fruit, he will be able to reach the peak of martial arts. Our MC's name was Gilfus Eldragon, and he was hailed as the strongest in the world. Decades later, Gilfus has gotten old, and he is on his deathbed. He is surrounded by his family members, and sitting beside him is his eldest son, Gilliam. Gilfus notices that his son looks sad, and he urges him to be good, saying his time has come. Gilliam is sad that he is about to lose his father just the same way he lost his mother. As he is about to pass away, Gilfus thinks about the immortality fruit and realizes that it was just a bunch of nonsense. However, he takes solace in the fact that he was blessed with a wife and children. He tells his children that he lived a good life and he has no regrets, although deep down this was a freaking lie. Gilfus basically has regrets that he didn't have more time to reach the peak of martial arts. Moments later, he passes away, and suddenly, he opens his eyes again. He is shocked and wonders why everything looks different. He senses that his body is light, and when he looks around, he realizes that he has baby hands. This is when it dawns on him that he is a baby, and he is in a baby's cot. He couldn't believe his eyes, but he tried to calm himself since he was a 10-star in his past life. Gilfus concludes that his position is nowhere near normal, and he starts wondering who could have done such to him. Suddenly, it dawns on him that the said immortality fruit that he ate wasn't actually an immortality fruit. The fruit's power was reincarnation, not immortality, just like he previously suspected. This makes him smile as he considers it a better luck to have. With this, he believes that he can finally reach the peak of martial arts. He notices that there are other babies around him. And since he's in a separate building, he figures out that he must have been reborn into the Eldragon family. However, he starts to wonder why there are so many babies in the room. Just then, maids enter the room with feeding bottles. They reach into one of the cots and grab a baby goblin to feed it. Gilfus is shocked to see a goblin in the room, and he wonders what the maids are planning to do. After feeding the goblin with a red substance, the goblin explodes, spilling blood on Gilfus' face. He is shocked to see this, and fear crawls through his body as he tries to figure out what is inside the bottle. The maids then decide to dilute it a bit and continue giving it to the kids. Gilfus is soon grabbed by a maid while he is still trying to figure out what it is that they fed the goblin that caused it to explode. He can clearly see that the content of the bottle is not milk, but it seems to be overflowing with magic. He cannot believe that the maids are feeding babies with something so dangerous. The maid pushes the bottle into his mouth, and when he gets a taste of the bottle's content, Gilfus finally realizes that it is ancient dragon's blood. He cannot believe how insane they are for making babies drink dragon's blood. He finally realizes why they said they are going to dilute it. He decides that he needs to spit it out, but remembers that he has swallowed it a little bit. However, he concludes that a little amount will not kill him. He notices that the other babies are also spitting out the substance and decides that this is the best thing for him to do before he explodes. Just then, it dawns on him that he might be making a mistake by spitting it out. He realizes that if he absorbs all the magic power, he might end up surpassing his past self and finally reach the peak of martial arts. He doesn't have a clue what is going on, but he decides to use the situation to the best of his ability. He drinks everything in the bottle with a face determined to show everyone why they shouldn't mess with him. Even the maid is shocked to see that Jilfis is happily consuming the dragon's blood that is being fed to him. The maid is also glad that things are working in their favor. After he is done drinking the entire bottle, he is placed back in his cot, and he realizes that the other babies also survived the ordeal. Just like a regular baby, he starts feeling sleepy from enjoying a good meal. 7 years later, Jilfis is seen practicing his strength skills by placing a boulder on his feet while doing a one-handed push-up. He reaches 1,000 push-ups before pushing the stone away into the distance. He stares at his bulk body, and he admits that he loves it. Apparently, Jilfis is now named Zeke Eldragon. Zeke attributes all the strength he has to the quality of the dragon blood that he consumed. The dragon's blood seemed to hold a vast amount of power, and even the babies who ingested just a little gained bodies, which are far stronger than those of regular humans. Thanks to the divine dragon's true source power that he had already absorbed in his past life, Zeke was able to take in every drop of the ancient dragon's unique power. Zeke was able to go through a transformation that left him himself shocked. However, Zeke notices that he is still a 1-star warrior, leaving him disappointed since he is supposed to be at least 4 stars. Basically, a star is one's true source of power, which is compressed to its very limit. One envisions their body as a universe and lets the stars move within. It turns out that the difficulty increases with each star because the more stars, the greater the strength. And Zeke, in his past life, managed to reach the rank of 10 stars, which made him the only person in the world to ever do so. It has now been 7 years since Zeke was born as the son of the current head of the Eldragon family, but he is an illegitimate child. His mother had already died, and his father never once showed his face. Zeke cannot believe that he has a piece of trash as his father. Apparently, he reincarnated a millennium later where the world has become a place for the weak to die at the hands of the strong. There is also a strange ritual known as the Dragon's Trial. Only babies who survive drinking the blood are supposed to be trained as Eldragon warriors, but Zeke has not received a single training from anybody. He tries asking the maid some questions, but the maid simply answers that she is not at liberty to say it. Zeke vents out to the maid, reminding her that those who pass the trial are supposed to get combat training, but he is surrounded by only maids and not a single instructor in sight. The maid acts like a doll as she asks Zeke if there is anything he requires, but he says no. Actually, Zeke can handle himself since he is currently focused on building his body more than getting combat training. Zeke then asks the maid if she can give him information about the other children in the main family, but the maid gives him the same reply, which is that she is not at liberty to say. Zeke tries to twist his way around to get an answer, but the maid maintains her answer. Zeke is pissed as he wonders if this is the only thing the maid can say. Zeke then asks the maid if he is at the house to be mistreated, but the maid debunks this, saying they have been ordered to tend to his personal needs. Zeke notices that the maid is a 3-star fighter, and for combat training, she would help him. Since the maid is not being helpful, Zeke decides that it is time for him to head into the forest. He can't believe that he has been living with a maid for 3 years, and they have no real connection. Zeke expects a reply, but he gets none from the maid, who seems to now be ignoring him. Zeke gets into the forest and eats a bunch of poisonous herbs, which obviously taste awful. However, he doesn't care as he considers it a part of his training. Suddenly, he notices that there is a faint trail following him. He wonders why someone would be trailing him and would not show up to say something. He ignores whoever it might be and focuses on what is coming in front of him. Suddenly, he notices an angry boar in front of him. It dawns on him that the black mist coming from the person trailing him didn't exist in his past life, leaving him to wonder what it is exactly. Nonetheless, Zeke shows himself to the boar, and just as the name implies, it charges towards Zeke. Zeke grins when he realizes that he has the boar's attention. Zeke takes the perfect stance to easily dodge the boar, and once the boar is right in the open, Zeke lands a punch to its gut. This leaves a terrifying impact that smashes the boar's insides and one-shots it. Zeke is impressed that just a light tap from him is a 1-star was able to take the boar out. Zeke then concludes that the quality of the star is what matters, not the quantity. Zeke grabs the boar and puts it on his shoulder as he heads back home. Zeke talks about how he is already tired of staying alone, and he thinks of going on an adventure. However, he realizes that the sea will be the only place he can go even if he wants to go anywhere. Meanwhile, the strange dude who was trailing Zeke is shocked that he was able to take out a boar with just a single punch without ever receiving an ounce of combat training. In addition to this, he can't believe that Zeke actually noticed that he was hiding. He basically concludes that Zeke is not a normal kid. Since his mother died very young and his father had no interest in him, he concludes that there is no way Zeke could have received a proper education. However, he isn't allowed to run away since he is the child of the family head, and because of this, he has been kept under surveillance. The strange dude realizes that things are getting very interesting at every turn. Zeke returns home and notices that there are visitors at the house. He can sense the strength of these visitors, and he wonders what it is that they want from him. He walks to the door to eavesdrop on their conversation, and from what he can sense, there is no killing intent from them. He then finally opens the door to see some men in the room, and he asks them why they have come. He notices that the men have the Eldragon emblem on their clothes. This gets him even more curious, and he wonders what the men want from him. Just then, the men tell him that they have come to take him because he needs to undergo an examination. Zeke almost loses his mind when he hears this since no one told him about any freaking examination. Soon afterward, Zeke is taken to the main house. He never expected that he would come back after 1,000 years since he had been away from there. Zeke is dressed in a school uniform by the men who came to the house. It turns out that he was brought to the main house not for luxury, but to attend the academy known as Dragon's Nest. This was an academy that was established by the Eldragon family, and everyone born in the family aims to enroll in the academy. Apparently, they all receive education when they turn 7 years old, and today was the entrance examination. But Zeke didn't receive any education in the first place. However, Zeke has no choice but to take the exam since it is mandatory, which is why he was brought all the way from where he is staying in the woods. Zeke is frustrated by everything, and this causes him to bow his head in pain. While the other students walk past him, one of them with blue hair, Langus, approaches him. Langus is from the old scale village, and he asks Zeke if he is fine or if he is in some sort of trouble. Zeke turns around to look at him, and he rudely asks him what he wants. Langus appears to be a timid person as he tells Zeke that he was only trying to help since he looks like he is troubled. Zeke is shocked by Langus's approach. He can sense that he is the shy type, but he notices that he has some power running through him. Zeke gets on his feet and apologizes for being rude. He then introduces himself, and he tells Langus that he is only confused as to what the family heads are planning to make them do. Langus then replies that the exam content doesn't change from year to year. However, Zeke clears the air, telling Langus that he actually does not know what the exam is all about. Langus is shocked when he realizes that the dude in front of him truly has zero knowledge of what he is saying. Langus wonders if Zeke will be fine since he has no idea what he wants to face during the examination. Langus then decides to take the pain to explain to Zeke. Just as he is about to start explaining, a group of bullies appears from behind calling Langus a runt. Even Zeke is shocked to hear someone calling Langus a runt. The bully group turns out to be led by a dude, Retin, and he is also from Old Scale Village. Retin makes fun of Langus, asking him why a runt like him is coming for the examination when he can go home and just play around. Langus still fails to catch the diss as he replies that he has come for the examination, but this only causes Retin to scream at him. Retin tells Langus that he is a piece of trash and that there is no way someone like him will ever get into the academy. Retin continues having a laugh at Zeke as he reminds him that his father is a mock dragon. Zeke notices that Langus is pissed as he can see that he has clenched his fist. Apparently, the Eldragon family has a hierarchy, which is established by an absolute monarch. The rookies are known as lesser dragons, the common soldiers are known as young dragons, and the captain class are the adult dragons. Sitting at the top are the elders or executive class, and they are known as the elder dragons. However, there is a level at the bottom which is reserved for trash, and they are called the mock dragons. The mock dragons are those who failed to enter the dragon's nest or those who could not graduate from the academy. They are basically referred to as fakes, but Langus wants to prove that people like him are not fakes. Zeke then decides to join the conversation, and he asks Retin how he knows that Langus is trash when he hasn't even undergone examination. Retin is shocked by Zeke's interference, and he asks him who he is and if he has a problem with him. Zeke replies that he is cool, but he just wants to know why Retin thinks it is impossible for Lang to enter the academy. Retin then replies that people like Lang are weaklings. Zeke is shocked to hear this, and he simply tells Retin that Langus is stronger than him and his gang of trash. This pisses Retin off as he asks Zeke if he is implying that they are beneath someone like Langus. Before the entire thing can blow up, an examiner shows up to tell the students that the entrance examination is about to begin. He tells the applicants that they are required to pick a number tag after registering. Retten stares at Zeke with so much disgust, promising that he is going to remember his face. Zeke is surprised that Retten is already pissed, and he wonders why the current youth are short-tempered. Langus is surprised to hear Zeke say this since they are all of the same age. Langus then adds that anyone would get mad if they were called weak. Zeke then asks if the exam is mandatory, but Langus mentions that he is free to withdraw if he thinks he lacks the ability to participate in it. This comes as a surprise to Zeke, but this further proves to Langus that Zeke knows nothing. Langus then advises Zeke to withdraw since he might get hurt during the examination. Zeke lets Langus know that he has no intention of withdrawing. Langus is surprised to see how confident Zeke is, even though he has no idea what the exam is all about. Zeke then suggests that they get a move on before the exam begins. Momentarily, all of the applicants are gathered. The examiner stands in front to tell them the details of the exam. He lets them know that all they need to do is leave a scratch on the rock in front of them to pass the examination. However, no weapons aside from the ones provided by the examiners are allowed. To make it interesting, they are allowed to use their bare hands as long as they can make a scratch on the rock. The examiner then reveals that they all have 3 attempts each, but Zeke doesn't see this as a particularly difficult examination. Langus is horrified to hear this, and Zeke wonders what the surprise is since all they need to do is get a scratch on the rock. Zeke was already expecting some crazy examination because of the trial that they put them through by having them drink dragon blood, but with what he is seeing, Zeke is highly disappointed. The examiner then orders the examination to begin. The first applicant walks up to the rock and slashes it with all his might, but this shatters his sword and leaves a loud bang that almost deafens those who are present. Even with all the strength that he put into it, he was unable to leave a scratch on the rock. The boy crashes to the ground in pain, and the examiners ask him if he is willing to use his remaining 2 attempts, but he is in so much pain that he can't. They declare this a forfeiture, and he is taken away. Zeke then notices that Langus is acting all weird, and he wonders why this is since the exam appears to be easy. Zeke then asks Langus about the rock. Langus reveals that the rock is called the Regeneration Stone, and it can repair any minor scratch instantaneously. It also has the ability to reflect a damage impact by 100 times over if attacked with brute force. Zeke concludes that the rock is pretty outrageous. Langus then mentions that one can actually leave a scratch on it if the ether source power within a person is properly circulated. With what he just heard, Zeke figures out that it basically falls on the proper handling of the ether source power rather than the individual's martial arts skill. Zeke takes a glance at the participants, and he figures out that there is a considerable number of applicants who should be able to pass the exam. He notices that Retten and his guys are also strong enough to pass the exam. From where he is sitting, he can hear the applicants failing one after the other after their arms are broken from trying to leave a scratch on the rock. Momentarily, the examiner calls on number 315, which is Zeke's number. Langus fears for Zeke, and he urges Zeke to withdraw, but Zeke assures him that he will be fine. Zeke steps up, and once the examiner sets his sight on him, he senses an immense pressure and aura coming from Zeke. Zeke is asked for a choice of weapon, and Zeke replies that there is no need for one as he plans to use his bare hands. The examiner asks him again if he really doesn't want to use a weapon, and he says yes, assuring the man that his fists are enough to do the job. When the other students hear this, they start making fun of him, saying there is no way he is going to be able to get a scratch on the rock with just his fists. Even Langus doesn't believe in Zeke, as he genuinely believes that his arms and fists might get ripped off. Langus starts blaming himself, saying he should have tried to stop Zeke from participating in the exam. Since Zeke has made up his mind on what he wants, the examiner tells him to proceed. Zeke checks out the rock and admits that it is made up of a mineral he hasn't seen before. He concludes that it is something that formed after 1,000 years. He realizes that there are a lot of things that he doesn't know yet, but he decides to shift them all to the future. Zeke powers himself up, ready to punch the rock. With the amount of power he generated, he believes that it should be enough to do what he wants to the rock. The technique he prefers to use is called the Dragon Slayer combat technique form. A bright yellow aura forms around his body and arm as he smashes his arm into the rock. This shatters the top of the rock at impact, leaving a loud noise and a cloud of dust. Everyone is surprised, but while everyone is closing their eyes, the examiner's eyes remain open, acting like a big deal. Zeke heaves a sigh of relief but notices that the technique is a bit advanced for him at his age. He checks out his arm to see that it is bleeding, and his uniform is also ripped. Instead of praising himself for breaking the rock, Zeke concludes that his training isn't enough. The other students are left to wonder how he did it. On the other hand, Retin is just mad that Zeke was able to smash the rock. Langus is left picking his jaw from the ground since Zeke is the last person he expects to pass the exam. Even the examiner considers what he just watched an impossibility because only someone who is a 4-star rank or higher should have been able to shatter the regeneration stone. Since Zeke is an illegitimate child, the examiner wonders if he somehow inherited the powers of the house. The examiner also figures out that he has seen the move that Zeke used somewhere else. Zeke then walks up to the examiner asking him how he fared in the examination. The examiner lets him know that he has passed, and he is given a bottle with a green substance in it. Zeke asks the junior examiner about the contents of the bottle, but the dude just stares at him with hatred, telling him to move away. Zeke just assumes that the bottle is a reward for passing the test. Zeke returns to his newly found friend, and Langus praises him for how amazing he was. Zeke then asks Langus about the bottle, and he reveals that it is a healing potion. Zeke is confused when he hears this, and Langus mentions that it is a normal grade healing potion. Zeke checks it out one more time and realizes that the substance doesn't look poisonous. He starts wondering if the said healing potion might actually be an elixir. Apparently, an elixir is a potion that is made from very rare materials, and it is combined with herbs that grow only in secret realms. In addition to this, pure elixir cores from divine and phantom beasts are added. Drinking the elixir basically heals old and recent wounds instantly while also boosting one's ether. However, refining the elixir is very difficult since its ingredients are very difficult to find. This is why it rarely appears on the market. Zeke then consumes the healing potion, and just as expected, his torn arms heal back up. Zeke is blown away and realizes that the healing potion is really an elixir. Lengus then says he has no idea what an elixir is, but the Eldragon healing potions are much better than the ones obtained from stores. Langus considers this a normal thing, while Zeke is entirely blown away since all of his injuries healed instantly. However, he notices that there is no ether surge like when he takes an elixir. Langus then tells Zeke that he is quite impressive, but Zeke doesn't believe this. Zeke checks out the bottle and realizes that it is basically what human knowledge has been able to create for over a millennium. Langus then reminds Zeke that he is pretty strong, and Zeke replies that he aims to be the strongest, so he is not surprised. Retin and his gang of bullies soon step forward to take their test, and they all pass. Zeke is not surprised by this as he already knows that they are going to pass. Finally, applicant 414 is called, and this turns out to be Langus. As he walks down the stairs, Zeke notices that Langus is nervous, and he urges him to pull himself together, assuring him that he is going to be fine. Langus basically turns around, telling Zeke to stop raising the bar so high. When Langus reaches the test site, he picks up a sword, leaving Zeke to wonder what the dude is actually doing. Langus takes a deep breath and launches his sword strike at the rock. However, he fails to leave a scratch, and he even falls down in the process. As usual, the examiner lets him know that he has 2 more trials. Langus then gets back on his feet to try again, but the result remains the same. He falls to the ground in tears, wondering if he is about to fail just like his bullies told him he would. Just as expected, Retin and the others are already laughing at him, saying the child of the half-dragon will always be half-dragon. They urge him to give up while reminding Zeke that he earlier said that someone as weak as Langus is stronger than they. The examiner then tells Langus that he has just 1 more try. They ask him if he wants to try again, and Langus starts to stutter as he falls into a state of total darkness. Just then, Zeke's voice appears from the darkness asking him what he is doing. Langus turns around in confusion, and Zeke suggests that he use a spear instead of a sword. Langus is still confused by this, and Zeke says he means what he said. Zeke berates Langus for using a weapon that doesn't suit him. Zeke assures him that no matter how many times he tries, he won't be able to make a dent in the rock using a sword. Retin and his friends start laughing at Zeke again, saying Langus was taught to use a sword from when he was a kid, and he never took spear lessons. At the same time, they believe that Langus will still remain his pathetic self even if he switches weapons. Zeke then asks the examiner if they are allowed to change weapons mid-test. The examiner assures Zeke that there is no problem in doing this. Zeke smiles at Langus, telling him that he is free to go ahead and use a spear. Zeke stands as a proper motivational speaker, asking Langus if he is ready to leave like a loser, but Langus says no. Langus then gets back on his feet as he tells Zeke that he will take his suggestion and try using a spear. Apparently, Langus' father wasn't allowed to enter the dragon's nest, and he was always at the receiving end of mockery. Even with all of these, he never gave up, and he still made sure to raise his son well. Because of everything his father did for him, Langus is willing to prove that he is not fake. He remembers Zeke saying he will always meet the same result no matter how many times he uses a sword. He hasn't known Zeke for long, but he is choosing to believe in him. However, he doesn't know how he is supposed to use the spear, and Zeke just tells him to thrust it straight. He urges him not to think hard about it and just do it. Langus knows it is impossible for a first-time spear wielder to just hit the regeneration stone and damage, but he will never be sure if he doesn't try it. Even though he just met Zeke, he is choosing to trust him. Since Zeke believes in him, he also wants to do the same. Langus takes his stance, and he notices that the ether source energy flowing through his body is actually different from when he was holding a sword. Langus rushes toward the stone and hits it, leaving a massive shockwave. Retin and his gang of bullies start laughing, saying there was no difference even though Langus changed weapons. However, on a closer look, they realize that Langus was able to do it. They are shocked when they see this, and even the examiner cannot believe that Langus actually pierced the stone with the spear. Zeke is proud of Langus, and he claps for him. Langus cannot believe his eyes when the examiner records in his book that he has passed the test. Langus is forced to ask again to confirm, but Zeke hugs him from behind, assuring him that he actually did it. With tears in his eyes and happiness, he hugs Zeke. Retina and his boys don't want to believe that Langus actually passed the test, and they all believe that it is a stroke of luck. The examiner then screams at the top of his voice, telling the applicants that the exam is over and what is next is the entrance ceremony. When Zeke hears this, he is surprised. He can't believe that scratching the rock is the only test that they are going to require of them. Langus then tells Zeke that there might actually be another exam after they enter the academy. Zeke then asks Langus what they are supposed to do since they have passed the test already, and Langus reveals that the heads of the Eldragon family will show up to give the participants their congratulatory words. Just then, a bunch of aura farming men appear in the distance, walking toward the students. Among them is a dude who catches Zeke's attention, and he asks Langus who the gloomy dude is. Langus cannot believe that Zeke just trash-talked the family head. Zeke doesn't hold back as he calls the family head an ugly dude. But before he can say anything further, Langus covers his mouth with his hand. Langus begs Zeke to be quiet and not say anything. And even though it is hard, Zeke decides to keep quiet. Zeke stares at the men who are considered to be the Eldragon's forces. He is impressed because there are a couple of decent dudes since they are mostly 6 stars. However, the head of the family, Balza Eldragon, is an 8-star warrior, which makes him a big deal. Back in his time, there were just a few 8 stars in the world, and Zeke wonders just how many will be left. Zeke then tells Langus how he feels. He lets him know that he doesn't like Balza. He doesn't even care if the man is his father or not. Just then, Balza steps forward with an overwhelming aura to address the students. He only says a few words to the students, and this is him telling them to become the flesh and blood of the Eldragon. However, these words carry a crushing weight alongside his aura, as all of the students except Zeke start to tremble. Even Langus complains of how hard it is for him to breathe, but Zeke feels nothing from Balza's presence. All he can feel toward Balza is pure hatred, even though he doesn't know why. After he is done addressing the student, Balza turns around to leave. Another elder then takes the reins, telling the students that the head of the house is expecting great things from them. This person catches Zeke's attention too, and he starts to wonder who the blonde-haired elder is. Zeke figures out that Balza's departure has reduced the tension on the students a bit, but they all remain composed from the aftermath of Balza's presence. The examiner then steps forward to reveal that they are going to announce the dormitory assignments. Zeke is shocked to hear this, as he thought they would all be going to the same place. Langus then decides to explain to him since he knows nothing. He tells him that the academy has 4 dorms. The students are assigned to one of the 4 dorms, which are the East, West, North, and South dorms. Momentarily, Zeke hears his name, and he stands up to leave. He tells his new friend to take care of himself, and the two exchange pleasantries before he leaves. Zeke has been assigned to the Academy's East Dorm, and he is surprised to see how much things have changed in over 1,000 years. He follows the directions written in the note in his hand to navigate his way to his room. He is worried that his roommate will be mad that he is coming in late, and this all happened because he got lost. He finally makes it to the door, and with all enthusiasm, he opens the door to announce his arrival and greet his new roommate. However, the enthusiasm and excitement die off when he sees who his roommate is. Zeke cannot believe that his roommate is none other than Langus. And when he sees the boy, just assumes that he has an unexplainable connection with him. Langus smiles while agreeing with him and also mentioning the fact that he was already feeling lonely. Zeke then asks Langus if there is no plan for the day, and he says there is none. Since their training session will start the next day, they have been instructed to rest. Zeke has no idea of this since he was not paying attention during the entire orientation session. He looks bright while admitting this, but Langus doesn't think it's something that he should be proud of. Langus decides to move past the entire scolding session and suggests that they get some sleep since they will be training the next day. Apparently, Zeke was initially planning to ditch the school and just go on an adventure, but the new things that he saw since he arrived at the school interested him. He has decided to stick with the house just a little bit if this will help him to learn more about the world after a millennium. A month later, the kids are undergoing intensive training under their tutor. They are being taught how to master the dragon's breath, which was made by the 15th head of House Eldragon. The tutor tells them that they need to master the technique so that they can use it in any situation. The tutor moves around keeping an eye on the kids. He notices that some of them have mastered it, and one of them is Laika, the head of the house's daughter. Apparently, she is already skilled enough to be classified as a second star. However, he is more interested in Zeke. While everyone else is struggling, Zeke is carrying a boulder on his head while holding 2 dumbbells that have small boulders on them too. The tutor starts to draw closer to the fact that Zeke inherited the head's power. However, he wonders how he is able to master everything since he had no teacher who could have put him through. The teacher can only wonder but couldn't come to a conclusion. On the other hand, Zeke is thinking about how the breathing technique, the Dragon King's breath that he invented, has been modified and passed down as dragon's breath. Apparently, breathing techniques are ways to draw ether from the air into one's body and pass it around, which ultimately helps to enhance the ether. However, the optimal level depends on the user's skill and creativity. This is the reason each noble house refines its own style and keeps the finished technique secure. Zeke admits that the technique is safe and easy to learn, but he believes that it is utterly useless if he can only use it when he is standing still. Basically, his original technique allows him to use ether while moving around. The effects of the technique are huge, but only a few inherited it because of how difficult it is. Zeke simplified it back then so that anyone could use it in order to make the clan stronger, but he never thought it would evolve and be around for 1,000 more years. Zeke is impressed by this, and he believes that there might have been other martial arts techniques that have changed over time too. After the training session, the kids head to the dining hall to eat. While everyone is struggling to eat due to tiredness, Zeke is munching on his food without a care in the world. He notices that Langus is looking drained, and he urges him to eat his food because he won't be able to move optimally if he runs out of energy. Langus is forced to ask Zeke how he is so full of energy when everyone else is drained. Zeke disses Langus, telling him that he is just a weakling. He urges him to eat more and train harder. While lecturing Langus, Zeke notices that some of the kids who are well-trained are actually eating their food. Just then, Zeke is approached by Laika, and because Zeke doesn't know her, he straight up asks her who she is. Langus almost chokes on his food when he hears this, and he quickly moves to Zeke to whisper in his ear. He tells him that Laika is the head's daughter, but Zeke innocently tells Lang that he had no idea. Lang is almost dying from pressure as he tells Zeke that they are not even supposed to be talking to Laika. Zeke just stares at him like a fool while telling him that he is also the head son even though he is an illegitimate child. Langus and Laika are both shocked when they hear this, and Laika asks him if he is telling the truth. Zeke calmly replies that he has no reason to lie. Laika then asks him how he was able to get strong enough to smash a regeneration stone with his bare hands. Laika is genuinely interested, but Zeke just replies that he was able to do it because he is just a cool dude. Zeke notices that Langus is totally out of his zone, and he calls him back out of it, telling him to eat his food. Laika then moves closer to Zeke, asking him if he would like to join her. Zeke is confused by what she means, and Laika says it plainly, urging Zeke to become her subordinate. Laika tells Zeke that she is going to become his backer since he is an illegitimate child, and he would obviously want allies. Laika wants Zeke to assist her in becoming the next head using his power, and she promises to reward him generously when she becomes head of the family. She sweet-talks this, but Zeke calmly tells her that he is not interested in the offer. When Laika hears this, she assumes that Zeke is also aiming to become the head of the family, which is why he is rejecting the proposal. While she is busy spewing her trash, Zeke is observing her, and he sees that she is already on the verge of becoming 2 stars, and he considers it something impressive for her age. Zeke finally opens his mouth to tell the girl that she is free to do whatever she likes because he is not interested in anything that concerns the family. Laika is shocked to hear this, and she gets more persistent as she asks Zeke what he really wants. Zeke is pissed off, and he angrily stabs the table with his table knife while unleashing a scary amount of pressure from his body tell Laika that he has no interest in serving anyone. Zeke says he wants to be alone because he is obviously the strongest. Laika can feel the pressure from Zeke, leaving her utterly shocked. She cannot believe that Zeke's aura is actually scaring her. Zeke continues munching on his food, while Langus tries to calm the situation. Laika then loses it, and she challenges Zeke to a duel. Zeke is surprised by this, but he is not one to shy away from a challenge. In no time, the news about the duel spread among the students that Laika is having a duel at the training grounds. The students rush over to watch the duel, and while Langus is freaking out, Zeke is acting very casual. Langus tries to remind Zeke that he is about to fight Laika, but Zeke simply replies that he has no idea who she is. Zeke then notices that Laika is also acting formally, and he asks him why this is. Well, genius, this is because you are the head son, Laika says. Zeke then asks Laika what it is that he wants from him. Zeke tries to explain the situation to him. He says Laika is Balz's daughter, and she also has Typhona blood, which is basically one of the 4 great houses backing Eldragon. Langus says Laika is a genius because she was able to master every form of swordsmanship that comes from House Typhona. Zeke just stands there casually while telling Langus that the only thing he is aware of is the fact that she is Balz's daughter. Zeke starts laughing, saying that not knowing actually adds more juice to the entire thing. He considers it an exciting turn of events, while Lang scolds him that there is no way he is going to win against Laika. Lang asks him why he accepted the challenge in the first place, and Zeke says it is obvious that he is expected to accept if he is challenged to a duel. In addition to this, Zeke stares at Laika, and he concludes that she looks readier for the duel. Laika then screams at Zeke to stop chattering while staring at him with her sword pushed into the ground like a proper warrior and asks Zeke if he is ready to be taught some really good manners. Since the two are ready to fight, Lang leaves the arena for them. Lang urges Zeke to be careful as he runs away. Now that they are alone, Zeke asks Laika why she is so hell-bent on fighting him. Laika replies that she is aiming to be the next head of the house and to claim the said seat. She wants to defeat Zeke and make him serve her. Zeke is shocked when he hears this, and he starts wondering what it is everything has to do with him. Laika is surprised that Zeke is acting all nonchalant, and she asks him if he doesn't know the truth about his family because he is an illegitimate child. Zeke is about to tell Laika that he knows when she cuts him off. Laika explains that including Zeke, there are 5 heirs competing to be the next head. Zeke is the only one who doesn't carry blood from one of the 4 great houses of Eldragon. The key point is that whichever house produces the head, which means they are all striving to be the best in the academy. And to stand against her brothers, Laika says she needs more allies. The whole explanation leaves Zeke totally confused, but he manages to grasp the point of it. Laika lets him know that she is fighting to secure her place, and without wasting any more time, she lunges towards Zeke. She is determined to defeat Zeke, and with her sword, she tries to land a hit on Zeke, but he suddenly steps back. Zeke dodges the strike, but the sword strike leaves the ground shattered. Laika is not ready to give up as she stands up again to attack Zeke. She swings her sword frantically and with great power, leaving the spectators totally amazed. They commend Laika for being so great with the sword even if it is just a training sword. As if she can hear the spectators cheering for her, she increases the intensity of attacking Zeke. However, Zeke simply leaps around the arena, dodging her every strike. The spectators, on the other hand, are blown away by how powerful Laika is since she is the child of the family head. They are confident that Laika will finish the match in time. Unknown to them, Laika is already getting frustrated because all Zeke does is jump around to dodge her strikes. Zeke puts little to no effort into dodging Laika's attacks, forcing her to question her inability to land a hit. Zeke commends Laika for actually being fast, and the kind of technique she is using also appears to be great. Zeke even adds that she is performing better than regular 1-star warriors. Laika gets mad and screams at Zeke, telling him to fight instead of just talking. Since this is what Laika wants, Zeke decides to give her a taste of his strength. Zeke easily dodges her strike before punching her in the chest. The punch sends a destructive wave through her body, causing her to cough up blood. Laika falls to her knees in pain, leaving the other students shocked. In pain, Laika looks up and asks Zeke why she can't land a hit on him when she is supposed to be much better than him. Zeke admits that she is faster than most one-stars that he has met, but he lets her know that she is still nothing but a one-star warrior. Laika then argues, reminding Zeke that he is also one star. Zeke explains that he can easily read her movements thanks to the way she breathes, the twitch of her muscles, and even the shift of her eyes. In addition to this, he has way more experience than her. Zeke explains this in such an arrogant way that it forces Laika to get back on her feet. She dashes towards Zeke again with her sword in hand, ready to tear his head off. But even with the surprise attack, Zeke still dodges by acrobatically leaping backwards. This leaves Laika clearly open to Zeke's attack, and Zeke punishes her by punching her straight into the far wall. She hits the wall and leaves a huge cloud of dust covering the area. The spectators are left shocked when they see this, as they wonder if Laika actually lost. Langus is excited when he sees this, and he rushes back into the arena, telling Zeke how incredible he is. However, Zeke tells Langus that the fight is not yet over. Zeke is impressed that Laika is actually able to withstand his blow. When the dust clears, Laika is seen struggling to get off her knees with a battered body, but she is not ready to give up. Langus tries telling her to stop because she might end up worse. Zeke then tells Langus to step back because things are about to get more serious. And if he gets injured, he is not going to be responsible for it. Zeke had suspected it, and now he confirms that Laika has reached 2 stars. Laika gets on her feet and a blaring aura swirls around her. The spectators immediately figure out that Laika has reached 2 stars. The 2-star realm is one where the wielder can project true source power outside the body for martial arts. The projection is basically what is known as aura. Laika appears stronger, and she thanks Zeke for pushing her to be able to reach 2 stars. Enraged, she dashes towards Zeke, ready to strike him down. Her sword follows a golden trail of aura, and Zeke admits that she has gotten stronger and faster. Zeke continues to toy with her until he misjudges her strength, and he ends up getting cut on the face. Laika notices that he is left in awe, and she uses that to boast about the strength of a 2-star. She assures Zeke that he's about to face the true Thunder Spirit Greatsword arts. Zeke, on the other hand, is excited because he will finally get to witness something he hasn't seen in the past. He is absolutely hyped to see what Laika has in store for him. Laika then activates her Thunderlight Flash technique that hits Zeke before he could even move, leaving him totally shocked and with questions of how Laika is able to wield lightning. Zeke admits that Laika is quite insane, but Laika doesn't see any form of regret coming from him because he is smiling. Laika angrily activates another technique, striking Zeke, leaving him to come to the conclusion that whatever Laika is doing is just too much for him. He knows that his body can't take what Laika is doing to him just yet, and while he is still trying to gather information on his current status, the spectators are all amazed. They never expected someone who is a 1-star warrior to stand toe-to-toe with Laika. Zeke figures out that Laika's movements haven't changed much, but her upgrade to 2 stars has given her a sudden explosive power. Zeke is forced to admit that Laika is doing pretty great, in addition to the fact that being covered in lightning the way she is doing it was basically impossible 1,000 years ago. With the way she is moving around, Zeke figures out that he could land a counterattack, but he is curious to see her full power, so he is ready to take the hits till then. Laika is pissed that Zeke still has the effrontery to be smiling even when he is in such a bad situation. She concludes that Zeke is brimming with confidence and decides that she is going to take that confidence away from him. She dashes toward him with an even deadlier and faster technique that Zeke couldn't dodge. Zeke watches as the attack hits him, and he is thrown into the wall, leaving a loud explosion that gets everyone watching worried about his well-being. The dust clears off, and Zeke is still on his feet with a smile on his face. This pisses her off again, and she strikes him with another lightning bolt attack to get him on his knees. Langus comes running over, telling Laika to stop the attack, but Laika refuses, replying that Zeke is on his feet. Laika claims that she can't stop because that would only crush his pride. Laika promises to go easy on Zeke if he surrenders and swears loyalty to her. However, Zeke remains mute, and Laika can clearly see that even though he is not a legitimate child, his pride as an Eldragon remains in him. Since he is acting all pompous, Laika decides that she is going to use everything she has to finish off the fight. She activates the Thunder Spirit Great Sword Arts, the Heavenly Thunder, and she strikes him with it. Zeke cannot move from where he is, and he has dealt the entire force of the strike. His body is hit with so much lightning that he screams out in pain. Once the attack is over, Zeke crashes to the shattered ground, unresponsive. Laika finally pushes her sword into the ground, believing that the match is over. To her greatest surprise, she hears Zeke's voice behind her, saying he finally understands how things work. Laika turns back, and to add to the surprise, Zeke's body is now sparkling, pointing out the fact that he can now use electricity. This shocks her and also leaves her asking why Zeke can use electricity. Zeke is also shocked because he didn't know that this is what they call electricity. He walks toward Laika with pride, telling her that he actually has no idea how he is able to do it. However, he was intentionally leaving himself to get hit so he could study Laika's power. And before he knew it, he could use it already. Even with his explanation, Laika is still ultimately confused because what Zeke says should be impossible. All Zeke knows is that as Laika was hitting him with her attacks, he was constantly using his Dragon King's breath, and the lightning energy ended up reacting to his King's breath. This eventually built up lightning inside him, and in no time he found himself controlling lightning. Zeke tells Laika that he might not know all the details, but he figures out that Laika has a rare body since the great sword art is a family technique. Zeke decides to assume that her entire clan has the same constitution as her, and he has also learned a great lesson that source power itself can be fused with lightning. Zeke then adds that it is all thanks to Laika that he has managed to become 2 stars. With this, Zeke confidently tells her that the fight isn't over yet. Laika angrily swings her sword at him, but Zeke only smiles and activates his lightning powers. Zeke then jumps so fast that he couldn't control his body. Since his source power has been infused with lightning's properties, his entire muscles and nerves are stimulated, giving him more strength. Zeke considers it a special trait and concludes that he is going to get the hang of it in no time. Meanwhile, Lagnus can only watch from the sides as the two battle each other, and he is barely keeping up. Lagnus soon realizes that Zeke is already dodging Laika's strikes pretty effortlessly. Laika is frustrated about the whole thing, leaving her to ask Zeke if he is trying to mock her, but he says no, telling her that he actually sees her as a real threat. Laika swings her sword to a great distance just to try and catch him off guard, but he still dodges the strike, and he decides that it is time he finishes off the battle. Zeke mentions that to finish the battle, he is going to create a new technique even though it's been a long time since he's done that. Laika is confused when Zeke says this, and Zeke lets her know that it is just as she heard it. He is going to create a new technique or a special form, to put it simply. This shocks Laika, leaving her to question if Zeke was trained in secret combat arts, but she can't fathom which house it is. Zeke notices that she is completely lost in her thoughts, and he uses the opportunity to charge toward her at great speed. Zeke hits her with his newest technique, the dragon-slaying arts, Tempest of Thunder. With a powerful combination of lightning bolts, Laika falls to her knees, and Zeke smiles, saying the match is over. Laika is so damaged that she couldn't even stay on her knees, and she ends up crashing to the ground in pain. Laika crawls toward her sword because she cannot believe that she just lost, and she is aiming to surpass her brothers to become the next head of the house. While she is busy scolding herself, Zeke walks up to her, telling her that she was actually strong because she provided him with a really tough fight. Zeke mentions that he likes learning new things, and he doesn't consider the time of the battle a waste. With a smile on his face, he asks Laika if they will get another chance to duel again. In fact, he wants them to still engage in another duel in the future. But while saying this is just staring in horror and shock. A few hours later, Laika's father, Balza, is seen in a dungeon wiping out monsters as if they were nothing. Just the first form of his dragon combat arts is enough to take out a whole horde of monsters without stress. He is doing his thing when a messenger enters the dungeon to tell him about the latest report concerning his daughter. He lets Balza know that his daughter, Laika, has advanced to 2-star, but Balza is not moved by this. The dude tries telling Balza that Laika's advancement is a really huge feat for her age because as things stand, she might reach 5-star before she graduates. Balza then clears the air saying talent is nothing unless it is put to use. He urges the dude to come back with more news when she has finally used her new power. Just then, the dude tells Balza that Laika just lost a fight, and Balza assumes that she fought a senior. However, the messenger tells him that the person who defeated Laika was his illegitimate son, Zeke. Balza remembers Zeke because of the woman who birthed him. Balza admits that Zeke's mother actually had talent, but he knows that his mother was long dead before he was born. This leaves him wondering how he was able to acquire the skills that he used in defeating a 2-star. The messenger then mentions that the beautiful thing about the entire thing is that Zeke got to 2-star on his own. He didn't have anyone mentoring him, but he kept pushing forward. Upon hearing this, Balza decides that it is time they begin the first trial. The dude is shocked to hear this, and he tries to remind Balza that it is too early, but Balza doesn't care. He says death comes to all equally, and only the strong are allowed to survive. Balza says anyone who is not able to survive the first trial is absolute trash and deserves no future. The officer has no choice but to follow his boss's order. Balza adds more shocking orders to what he is passing out by telling the officer to summon Freya. He is forced to ask again, and Balza confirms this, saying he wants Freya to be the one to oversee the trial since Zeke happens to be an interesting kid. The officer acknowledges the order and walks away. But as he does, Balza finally shows his excitement to see what Zeke has in store for him. Later on, Zeke and the other students are in the training ground following the teacher's instructions. However, Zeke is doing his own thing by carrying boulders 5 times his size. He is busy working on his breathing technique while the other kids are practicing the dragon's breath. The breathing technique he is learning is considered simple to him, and he expects kids to be able to even learn it. Lang soon notices Zeke's difference in training regimen, and he asks him if he is not interested in training with them. Zeke says he doesn't understand where he is coming from, and Lang mentions the dragon combat arts training. Zeke then calmly replies that he has already learned it, shocking Lang. Langus argues with him because they just taught them moments ago, and there is no way he has already mastered it. Zeke then decides to give him some lessons about his ether flow and how imbalanced it is. Zeke drops the heavy boulder that he is carrying on his head and tells Langus to turn around. Langus does this, and Zeke hits him from behind, passing some really good ether energy into him. Zeke tells Langus that what he is feeling is the proper channeling route. Langus can immediately feel the difference, and he thanks Zeke for his help. This is when it finally dawns on Langus that Zeke actually mastered it, but Zeke is pissed that Langus even doubted him. Langus quickly clears the air, telling Zeke that he misunderstands him. Langus mentions that he has never been taught by anyone besides his father, which is why he has always had to push himself. However, Zeke is already strong enough to defeat Laika on his own. Langus assumes that the dragon combat arts are simple and boring for Zeke, but Zeke says this is not the case. Zeke mentions that the stability is actually quite impressive. Basically, dragon combat arts was once talked down on by his sons who claimed that it was too complex and difficult. Even though it is complex, it is a combat art of overwhelming power that has several fighting forms incorporated into it. In addition, Zeke has just gotten a new form thanks to his fight with Laika. It turns out that the technique he used in defeating the dragon is the final form, and Zeke is curious to see how the technique has been refined over the years. Zeke then decides that it is time to return to physical training since there is nothing else to learn from dragon combat arts. Suddenly, Langus hits Zeke with a weird request, asking him if he would do him the honor of training him. Langus talks about his desire to get really strong even though it is quite tough. Surprisingly, Zeke tells him that he is up for it because he sees Langus as someone who is teachable. Langus is still celebrating his win when a familiar voice appears from behind, asking Zeke to train her too. The voice is none other than Laika, and even though she is shy about it, she cannot help but admit the fact that Zeke is impressive enough to have defeated her. Laika talks about just how good Zeke is, and she admits that her pride was shattered during their match. Zeke is shocked by the sudden request, and Laika adds that she also wants to get stronger so she can surpass her brothers and even Zeke himself. Laika completely throws away her ego, and she urges Zeke to teach her how to be stronger. But Zeke takes a moment to think about his answer, leaving Laika in a state of panic. Laika is impressed when she realizes that Zeke is ready to train her, since he also has a claim to the title of the head. Zeke assures Laika that he doesn't mind training her, but he is worried that she is not healed from their last fight. Laika then reveals that she used a healing potion, which is why she is fine. Zeke is blown away by the ridiculous things that the potion can do. Langus then says Laika is also impressive aside from the fact that she used a healing potion. Zeke agrees, saying they now live in an era where everything is possible. Laika also comes clean, saying that without the potion, she would have been bedridden for a whole month. She then asks Zeke again if he is ready to train her, and Zeke assures her that he is not one to turn down an eager young talent. Lagnus and Laika are shocked by his choice of words since he is also young like them. Zeke nervously moves past the matter to avoid further questioning from the two. Zeke then asks Laika if she is sure about receiving training from him because he is the one who beat her up in the first place. Laika replies that she doesn't mind because she is not in a position to care about status or pride. She is ready to do whatever it takes to get stronger and claim the position of head for herself. Zeke then asks her why she is so obsessed with being the head of the family because this was the same thing she was shouting when they fought. Laika then confesses that failure to become the head of the family means the only path for her is marriage. And talking about marriage, it is going to be a political one, which is pretty obvious. She is going to end up marrying one of her cousins or a dude that she has never even met in her life. Zeke is shocked to hear this, and Laika explains that the Eldragon bloodline is valuable, especially for the 4 great houses. She says the true source of their power is pretty unique, which is why they are going to use the ladies in whichever way they please. Zeke bursts out in rage when he hears this because he never believed that the family would treat a human being like breeding stock. Zeke swears that he will be the one to put an end to the trash culture and tradition. Suddenly, the instructor calls the students' attention to the fact that there is a new instructor in town. He tells them that the said instructor came even though she was very busy. The redhead lady appears out of nowhere and tries to grab Laika by the ear, but her reflexes kick in and she moves backward before she can touch her. The lady commends Laika's reflexes, saying they are pretty sharp. Lengus, on the other hand, is trembling from fear, and he grabs Zeke because he couldn't even sense her. The instructors finally introduce the mysterious lady standing in front of them as Freya. Freya is a member of the Black Dragon Corps, and she smiles, saying it is nice to meet the students. Freya notices that Zeke is not surprised, and she mentions this. Zeke shatters her ego, telling her that there is nothing to be surprised about. However, Zeke smiles, telling Freya that she has an intriguing skill. Freya finally understands why the head of the family has been concerned. On the other hand, Zeke is more interested in Freya's martial arts than her annoying concealment skill. Zeke notices the flow of power in her legs and realizes that he has not seen anything like it before. Zeke is already eager to get it on with Freya because she appears to be really interesting. Freya then joins the other instructors to tell the students to be at their best behavior. The head instructor also mentions that Freya is a 6-star dragon, and he urges the students to pay attention. The other students are shaking and trembling from Freya's amazing power, unlike Zeke, who doesn't really care. The students ask Freya if she's going to teach them her skills, and she says yes, but tells them that they are going to have to pass her test first. The students panic when they learn that there is a test involved, but Freya assures them that it is an easy one. She brings out a crystal orb, and she tells them that they have to take the orb and then spend a whole month on Poison Dragon Mountain. This sends another wave of panic among the students, but Zeke remains calm as usual. He realizes that it's been a long time since he heard the name. The Poison Dragon Mountain is a place that is home to countless venomous beasts. Even the plants on the island are so dangerous that brushing past one of them means instant death for an ordinary person. Zeke remembers that he used to train there in his past life. He wonders if the mountain is not too much for the kids. Freya reveals that anyone who goes missing or breaks their crystal orb during the test is automatically disqualified. One of the students then asks what will happen if they fail the test, and Freya lets them know that they are automatically expelled. As for the poison, she tells them that they can control their breath with the dragon's breath technique. She assures them that they will be fine as long as they keep their orbs safe. Laika protests, saying there are monsters on the mountain, and Freya coldly replies that it is up to them to kill the monsters. It is basically a game to survive for a month or die in the process. The students start to panic, but Freya urges them to calm down because they still have 5 days before the test. In the course of 5 days, they are expected to choose and learn one of House Eldragon's basic martial arts to help them survive on the mountain. She assures them that once they have a fighting style, it will be easy for them to survive. However, she lets them know that she won't be taking responsibility for whatever happens if they can't master the fighting style in 5 days. One of the students asks if Freya will step in and help them if they are in danger, but she tells them with all seriousness that they are on their own. Freya believes that the test is very easy and that they should be able to clear it without much difficulty. Zeke is shocked by everything he is hearing, leaving him to wonder if the family has really gone down the rabbit hole. Freya then calls them forward to start picking out what manual they want. Langus is confused about what to pick, and Zeke urges him to pick the spear manual. He reminds him that he used one during the entrance examination, and hearing this, Langus makes his decision. Zeke also notices that Laika is confused about what to pick, and he tells her to pick the axe manual. Laika is shocked, and she asks Zeke why she should pick the axe manual. Zeke strolls away, telling Laika that it is going to cover what she is currently lacking. Since this is Zeke's advice for her, she decides to go with it. Once they have all picked what they want, Freya tells them to train on it for the next couple of days. Freya assures them that failure to do this means nothing but certain death. Suddenly, Freya adds one more rule to make things spicy. She tells them that during the test, senior students from the inner building will be trying to steal their crystal orbs. The seniors who will be joining them have just one job, and this is to steal their orbs. Freya then tries to make things make sense by saying there are more of them, so they should be fine. Lengus almost loses his sanity when he realizes that they will be fighting monsters and upperclassmen at the same time. Laika admits that she is going to struggle against the upperclassmen because they are all 2 stars or higher. Since she is going to struggle, she believes that most of the students are going to die during the test. Zeke agrees with Laika, but urges them to form pairs of 2s or trios if they can't handle the situation alone. Zeke mentions that there is no rule against teaming up against the seniors, so they should be fine. Langus then asks Zeke what he plans to do, and he reveals his intentions to go solo because this is more fun. Laika initially wants to protest against this, but suddenly remembers that Zeke is that guy, and he might actually be capable. Zeke smiles as he strolls off, suggesting that they get some food to eat. 5 days later, the students gather at the mouth of the mountain, and they all have their weapons with them. Freya is also present, and she loves the weather conditions because it is perfect for the test. Once she is done gloating, she declares the test open. As usual, Lagnus is nervous, and he wonders if it is okay to team up with Laika since he is not from a noble family. He is doubting himself when he hears another commoner like him. Celine mentioned that she is also in Laika's group. There is also another dude, Raymond, who will be joining the group, and they are all commoners. Laika then tells the trio that she doesn't care about status because she invited them due to their insane abilities. Langus is happy to be selected, and he assures Laika that he is going to do his best. The other 2 also assure her that they are going to live up to her expectations of them. As for Zeke, he maintains his stance about going solo. Zeke then commends Laika's team, saying they are a strong team. Zeke can see through their talents and realizes that she has gathered the most capable students in the class. He is impressed that she has a sharp eye for talent. Zeke assures Lagnus that he has nothing to worry about because his team is practically unstoppable. Freya is surprised to see that the students have chosen to move in groups. She commends these tactics since most of them have not even fully mastered their weapons. Once she confirms that everyone has their crystal orbs, she reminds them that their job is to survive for a month while keeping the orb. She tells them that as long as they have the orb by the end of the month, they have passed the test. She then drops another shocking fact saying the orbs are identical. This basically means they can steal each other's orbs. Freya tells them that the moment they settle into the mountain, the seniors will move in to try and steal their orbs. The seniors create a sense of panic in the kids, saying most of them have not even reached 1 star, which means things will be easy. Once Freya is done with her explanation, she tells the students to get a move on. As they dash into the woods, Laika turns around to tell Zeke that he must return alive, and Zeke tells her the same thing too. While everyone is rushing into the woods, Zeke stays behind, and Freya asks him if he is going or not. Zeke replies that he is not nervous like the others. Once everyone else has rushed ahead, Zeke starts strolling into the woods. After they are gone, the head instructor asks Freya if she thinks the kids will be fine because the exam appears to be too much for their current stage. The man says they are new students who know nothing but the basics, but their combat skills are seriously lacking. Freya then replies that everything will be fine. She admits that the mountain has a lot of monsters residing there, but the monsters are not strong according to her. Freya reminds the instructor that the students are sticking together, which should make things easy for them. However, there is something strange that she plans to release into the forest later on. The instructor hears this and asks her what she meant, but she quickly moves past it saying it is nothing. Freya then turns to the seniors, telling them to move out too. The seniors also rush out looking all hyped and eager to take down their juniors. Freya smiles, saying she's looking forward to just how many students are going to survive the test. Moments later, the senior finds Zeke standing alone in the forest, and they assume that he is easy prey. The seniors immediately converge on him, and one of them fires an arrow at him, but he easily catches it. Zeke laughs out loud like a maniac, telling the seniors that he has been waiting for them. Fear crawls through their bodies when they hear this because it is the last thing they expect to hear from him. They are still trying to process what is happening in front of them, when Zeke dashes toward them with a big smile on his face, looking like a terrifying character straight out of a horror movie. A week later, Laika and team are battling it out against tree frogs. With their precise coordination, they are able to take down a ton of frogs, and Laika commends her team, telling them that they are doing really great. The team, on the other hand, is blown away by Laika's ruthlessness as she has been able to take down multiple frogs. Laika tells them not to be surprised because she is obviously 2 stars already, and a bunch of tree frogs are nothing to her. In addition, she is impressed that they have all gotten stronger since the test started a week ago. Celine and Raymond have both become 1 star in the time frame of this. The two are happy, but they heap praise on Laika, saying it is all thanks to her. Lengus, on the other hand, has no star yet and he appears dejected. His team member notices this and lets him know that he has not left out of those who have gotten stronger. They tell him that he has no reason to rush, and Langus takes their encouragement with a bit of a smile. Laika lets him know that being able to take down the frogs without a star is an incredible feat on its own. In addition, Laika adds that Lengus trained with Zeke before the test, and this has made his spear work absolutely flawless. Laika tells him that it is just a matter of time before he reaches 1 star. Since it's already getting dark, Laika suggests that they return to base. After all, it is dangerous for them to be moving around in the dark. Upon arriving at base, they are met with a surprise. An upperclassman is already waiting for them, and the moment they spot him, they all go into defensive positions. Laika asks him if he is there to steal their crystal orb, and he tells them that this is the only reason he is there. Laika realizes that they have finally encountered an upperclassman, and he is a 2 star. Laika suggests that he turn around and leave since he won't be able to beat all of them by himself, but lets Laika know that she is wrong with her assumption. 3 other upperclassmen who are 1 stars appear from behind surrounding the team. The dude makes fun of Laika, telling her that she might be strong, but at the same time, she can't take them down while protecting the deadbeats who call themselves her teammates. The dude tells Laika to give up, but Laika refuses, and the two charge at each other. Laika tells the others to stay safe until she finishes up with the 2-star dude. A fierce battle ensues between the rest of the team and the upperclassmen. The upperclassmen urge the team to quietly surrender their crystals, but none of them is ready to do this. Langus finds himself facing off with one of the toughest 1 stars there, and he starts contemplating what to do. His mind flashes back to the conversation he had with Zeke. He asked Zeke what to do when facing off against a powerful opponent. Zeke crushes his hope and tells him to just give up. This shocks Langus, and Zeke points out that it is the most natural thing to do since he has absolutely no chance of defeating a 3-star or even a 4-star by himself. However, he lets him know that he might have a bit of a chance if he is going up against a 1-star enemy. Since they are all focused on the test, Zeke tells Langus that the strongest monsters on the mountain are 2 stars. In addition to this, the upperclassmen they will be fighting are 2 stars at most. With this, Zeke tells Langus that he has a bit of a chance. Zeke tells Langus that the tactic is nothing too complicated. Zeke says all he needs to wait for is an opening, and this confuses Langus. Zeke says he has a chance to flip the battle in his favor against a 1-star. Langus asks him how he is supposed to find an opening, and Zeke says all he has to do is keep enduring. Zeke explains that his only choice is to endure until the opponent finally leaves an opening. Langus is horrified by this, and Zeke reminds him that he is going up against a stronger opponent, which means he has no chance of creating an opening by himself. Zeke says he has to endure even if he is dying because failure to do this means he has absolutely no chance. Zeke assures him that with his current level, he should be able to endure against someone as strong as Laika. Langus is skeptical about the whole thing. Zeke tells him that he has to have faith in himself to make it work. In addition to this, Zeke tells him not to overthink it. Zeke says he doesn't need to overthink about finding an opening because his opponent will leave one at the right time. With this, he is going to get the chance to take him down with his spear. Now that Langus is facing off against a stronger opponent, Zeke's words echo in his head, and he admits that he is weaker, but he has to endure and wait for an opening. After minutes of trying to get through and failing each time, Langus's opponent gets frustrated and leaps into the air, aiming to strike him down from above. However, this provides the opening that Langus has been waiting for, and he drives his spear straight into the dude to knock him out. This shocks the dude, who can't believe his eyes, and at the same time, Langus jumps into the bandwagon of 1-star warriors. At the same time, Laika is dealing severe punishment to her opponent even though he is a 2-star too. Laika is able to do this, thanks to the sword techniques that Zeke advised her to learn. Laika overpowers her opponent and strikes him down for coming after her and her team. After taking care of the dude, Laika runs back to her team only to find out that they have won their individual battles too. The team celebrates, and they also congratulate Langus for reaching his 1st star. He appreciates the gesture and admits that he is very happy. Laika is confident that they now have a better chance at handling tougher opponents now that everyone on the team has a star. After the battle, Laika reveals her curiosity about how Zeke is coping. Unknown to them, Zeke is beating the upperclassmen up like they are a Cherokee drum, and those who can escape from him basically categorize him as a terrifying monster. As they run away from Zeke, he wonders why there is no one with the courage to stand against him. But the seniors just can't believe that a first year is hunting them down when they are supposed to be the hunters. One of them soon trips and falls, giving Zeke an easy chance to catch up to him. And with an overwhelming pressure in his voice, he tells the dude to stand up and fight. The pressure from Zeke's voice is so overwhelming and scary at the same time that it causes the dude to faint. Zeke mocks them for being so scared when they were boasting at the start of the whole thing. Zeke also notices that he is being watched by an instructor in the distance, and he urges the dude to come closer and watch him since his only job is to observe. However, the dude remains behind cover, and since he is not ready to interfere, Zeke decides that he is going to continue having fun with the seniors. The instructor is left stunned by what he just witnessed because Zeke is not just chasing upperclassmen, but he even noticed his presence. The dude immediately figures out that he has to report the whole thing to Freya, and moments later, the instructors gather to give their report. The instructors tell Freya that it's been a week since the test began, and at present, around 30% of the 7-year-olds have dropped out. However, they believe that the ones who remain are adapting pretty quickly, so they don't expect the numbers to drop much further. Freya is pleased to hear this, and she asks about the upperclassmen, but she gets a moment of hesitation from the instructors. Freya yells at them to stop stalling and say what they want to say. The instructors manage to force it open, telling Freya that the upperclassmen are running away. Freya is shocked by this since there shouldn't be any monsters on the mountain that should be strong enough to make upperclassmen flee. She then asks them what the upperclassmen are running from, and the instructor from earlier mentions that the seniors are running away from Zeke. Freya is surprised to hear this, and the instructor lets her know that Zeke is attacking the upperclassmen. He reveals that they initially fought back, but at the moment, every one of them is on the run. They let Freya know that Zeke is gladly taking down the upperclassmen, and he is even hunting them. They let Freya know that this is pretty unusual because it has never happened in the past. One of them agrees to this, saying Zeke is probably abnormal because he is the head son, which is why he has gone beyond the level of a prodigy and straight up become a monster. Freya admits that she thought Zeke was strange because he moved alone and took his sweet time getting started, which means from the very beginning, Zeke never saw himself as the prey but the hunter. Just then, Freya's package finally arrives, and she tells them to unload right where they are. The instructors freak out when they see what she's about to do, telling her that the kids won't stand a chance against a 3-star monster. With a casual smile, Freya tells them that there is nothing to worry about because they have made special adjustments. They ask her what she means by this, and she mentions that the monster only targets those who are 2-star class or stronger, which means it would only go after Zeke and Laika, so the normal kids won't be in danger. The instructors then ask her why she is choosing to do that now, and she mentions that it is an order from the head of the family. Deep down, Freya is excited to see what Zeke is made of, and she tells the instructors to release the monster at dawn. The next morning, the kids feel a strange presence, and they all figure out that something strange is going on. Some assume that it is a big monster like a large anger boar, but Laika is not worried about whatever it might be. Suddenly, Laika notices a tree falling in their direction, and she quickly gets her colleagues out of the way. By the time they get themselves back together, there is already a golem staring down on them, sending shivers down their bodies. Meanwhile, Zeke has also noticed the strange presence just when he started complaining that there is no one to face him. When he senses the danger, he figures out that they might be trying to send a message by releasing such a monster. He is not worried, but he thinks the other kids would have a hard time dealing with whatever monster is out there. He wonders why such a monster was not taken out by the instructors before the test, but he figures out that it was purposely let loose. The moment he realizes this, Zeke lets off a big smile because he believes that he finally has the avenue to enjoy himself again. He immediately gets off his arse, and he heads toward the 3-star monster to have fun with it. Back at Laika's camp, they are busy fighting the monsters, but her colleagues can't even scratch the monster. Laika then unleashes her Thunder Flash skill to slash the golem, and surprisingly, it leaves a small crack upon impact. Laika immediately figures out that only an attack infused with aura can damage the monster, which means only a 2-star or higher can take down the golem. The others ask Laika what they should do, and she tells them to run while she distracts the golem. They are shocked to hear this, and they let her know that they just can't leave her behind, but she reminds them that their presence is only going to slow her down. She tells them to look at the spot where she hits the golem, saying there is a crack, while the others couldn't even scratch it. They agree with her, saying they might not be able to hurt the golem, but they can still support her so she can easily land her blows. Surprisingly, everyone on the team vows to stay with Laika, telling her that they are going to support her. They assure her that they might have a chance to defeat the monster if she leads and they support from the rear. With this, Laika finally agrees that they back her up. Laika then dashes toward the golem, and she is protected by the shield dude so she can easily get behind the golem. Once she is behind the golem, she unleashes great sword arts, the heavenly thunder, and delivers a powerful strike to the golem's body. This leaves a massive explosion upon impact which drains all of Laika's strength but seemingly kills the golem. They rush over to check on Laika, and she lets them know that the strike she just used has dried up her power, and she asks Raymond if he is fine, and he assures her that he is good. Just as she is about to suggest that they head back to base, the golem appears behind her and grabs her before she can even react. They scream in panic, and Laika realizes that she messed up by letting her guard down because she believed that the golem was already destroyed. Even the other kids are surprised that the golem is still able to move after everything Laika has thrown at it. Lengus pokes the golem with his spear, trying to get it to release Laika, but suddenly, a tree comes flying at the golem, forcing the golem to drop Laika. They quickly grab Laika to escape to a safe distance while wondering what just happened. Out of nowhere, they hear a familiar voice, which is Zeke's voice. With an excited face, Zeke emerges from the wood, and he looks absolutely fascinated by the golem since it is his first time seeing such a monster. Moments earlier, Zeke had noticed Laika's lightning strike, and he realized that Laika's group was the first to get to the monster. Zeke is disappointed in himself because back in his prime, he would have closed down the distance really fast. Even though Laika's group is full of promising kids, Zeke wonders just how long they can hold out against a 3-star monster. Zeke then decides to try the new trick that he learned some time ago. He runs to a tree and pulls it out with an overwhelming force before hurling it in the golem's direction. As the tree cuts through the air toward the golem, Zeke is glad that he actually learned the skill. The Dragon Nurturing Arts, which are a basic combat arts manual given to the kids before the test, and just like the Dragon Slayer combat technique booklet, it isn't a combat style but more like a guide to basic movements and the flow of the true source of power. Zeke realizes that the technique is pretty perfect for him, but before he can think more about the technique, he remembers that the kids are in danger and he has to go. Now that he is finally there, he asks the kids how they are holding up, and they yell at him to worry about the golem. Zeke, on the other hand, is more concerned about the monster's name rather than the danger it poses. Zeke talks about how strange he finds the golem because it has a presence but has no life force. Suddenly, Golem throws a punch at Zeke, but he easily blocks the punch with his fist. Zeke immediately figures out that there is no way the golem is going to be defeated without an aura-coded strike, but he doesn't want to defeat it the normal way because it is going to be too boring. Laika hears this and smiles because Zeke remains the reckless dude that he is. Even Langus can't believe that he just called the monster boring. The monster launches another attack at Zeke, and he immediately figures out that the monster is pretty fast even though it's huge. Zeke easily blocks the attack by holding up the golem's hands, and he tells the kids to stay back because it is about to get dangerous. They follow his orders, and they dash into the distance to give Zeke the chance to properly engage the golem. Once the kids are clear of danger, Zeke throws the golem into the distance with an immense force. Zeke admits that the golem's outer shell is sturdy, but he would like to see if it is the same inside. He leaps toward the golem and lands a powerful punch to its head using the Dragon Destroyer combat arts. He then engages the second style to unleash a burst of energy into the golem. By doing this, Zeke easily takes the golem apart from the inside, and he finally admits that he's had a bit of fun. In the end, the 1-month test period ended without further incident, and there were no major events after the 3-star golem attack. Thanks to the brutal conditions they faced on the mountain, most of the 7-year-olds managed to achieve 1-star rank. And just after the test ended, Zeke was summoned by the head of the family. As they walk to the dude's office, Zeke asks Freya what he wants from him. Freya cautions him, telling him to address Balza as Lord Head. Freya tells Zeke that his behavior during the exam is why he is being summoned. Zeke asks her what she means by this, and she reveals that it was the upperclassman's role to attack and steal crystal orbs, but Zeke turned it around and started attacking the upperclassman instead. Freya yells at him saying no one has ever done that, and because of what he did, none of the upperclassmen secured a single orb, which means they would have to retake the test. Zeke reminds Freya that he didn't do anything against the rules, and he didn't even steal anything. Freya yells at him, telling him that no sane person would expect a lower-classman to attack an upperclassman, but she's not even ready to deal with his shenanigans. She's only concerned about his tone when they finally stand before Balza, and moments later, they arrive at the red door that leads to Balza's office. Freya tells him to behave himself once they are in Balza's presence, and Zeke asks her why he should do this. Freya can't believe that she has to explain everything to him, and she screams at him, telling him that he is going to get killed even if he is a child. Upon arriving at the door, Freya knocks on the door, revealing her name and stating her business. With a stern voice from inside the room, Balza tells her to enter, and she enters the office with Zeke beside her. Without wasting time, Balza asks Zeke why he attacked an upperclassman, and instead of answering the question, Zeke decides to ask his own question. He asks Balza if he wasn't supposed to attack, and Balza is shocked by his question. Zeke reminds him that the exam condition was to survive for 1 month on Poison Dragon Mountain with a crystal orb, and nothing else was said. So he basically spent the 1 month however he liked. Zeke tells Balza that he should have mentioned if there were any special rules before the exam, but nothing was said. Freya cannot believe that Zeke is seriously speaking to Balza the way he wants. Freya is about to start scolding her when Balza unleashes an overwhelming aura from his body that scares Freya so much that she goes down on her knees. However, Zeke remains standing as if nothing is happening, and he casually tells Balza to stop getting thrilled every time he gets intimidated because it is annoying. A shocking expression is left on Balza's face, and Zeke asks him if he only called him to ask him boring questions. Balza then asks Zeke how he did it, and Zeke asks him what he means. Balza mentions that he heard about how he defeated not only the upperclassmen but even a golem. In addition, Zeke just stood before him like it was nothing, and Balza asked him how a bee-son, like him, was able to gain such power. Zeke casually tells Balza that there is no reason for his power except for the fact that he is just who he is. Balza cannot believe what is happening right in front of him, and he tells Zeke that his behavior is just as reported. But even with this, he's going to give him a reward for defeating the golem. Balza tells him that he has the option to choose from the dragon treasury or permission to enter the second floor of the dragon hall. Even Freya is surprised that Zeke is getting a reward because the dragon treasury are vaults filled with rare items collected by the family heads for over 1,000 years since the first Jilfas. The dragon hall, on the other hand, stores books, including ones that are now considered forbidden. The dragon treasury stores relics of former lords, legendary weapons, elixirs, artifacts, and rare items from many eras. These facilities are the family's prized archives and are strictly controlled, so only a handful may enter. It turns out that entering the second floor of Dragon Hall requires exceptional achievement. Freya can't believe that Balza is still willing to reward Zeke even after the disrespect. Zeke finally speaks up asking Balza why he can't give him both since it is a reward, but Balza just tells the dude to leave. Zeke can't believe that Balza is already chasing him when he still has plenty to say. Freya quickly grabs him and drags him out of the room while telling him that it is an honor to receive a direct reward from the head of the family. As he's getting dragged out, Zeke tells Balza that he is going to leave him one thing. He lets him know that as long as he keeps killing his emotions, he will never grow truly strong. Freya screams at the dude to keep quiet, and she thanks Balza for his time. After they leave the office, Freya screams at him, asking him why he was acting like that in Balza's presence. Freya reminds him that she already warned him before they entered the office, and Zeke lets her know that he was simply holding back. Freya cannot believe that Zeke can be polite around the instructors, but he has zero respect for the head of the family. Zeke casually reminds Freya that the dude is his father, and Freya admits that Zeke is no ordinary child, forcing her to ask Zeke who exactly he is. Zeke replies with the same thing he tells Balza by telling Freya that he is him. Freya knows that they all drank ancient dragon blood as infants, but Balza carries the blood of a superior ancient dragon, the Dragon King. This is why they can't defy Balza, but Zeke was able to stay calm in front of Balza like it was nothing. Zeke notices the confusion on Freya's face, and he asks her if there is any problem, but she says nothing. Deep down, Freya is already thinking of how she is going to recheck Zeke's birth records. Freya then asks Zeke what reward he plans to choose between the right to enter the Dragon Hall's second floor or a single item from the Dragon Treasury. Zeke casually replies that he wants both, but Freya rejects this. And since this is the case, Zeke tells her that he would go for the right to enter the Dragon Hall's second floor. Zeke chose this since he knows little about this era, and he is curious about the new medicines and tools developed over 1,000 years. Zeke is thinking about this when Langus shows up talking about how excited he is that he is going to enter the Dragon Hall. Zeke turns around to ask him if it is that exciting, and Langus says yes. Lang says the dragon-slaying combat arts and dragon-nurturing spear arts he learned before were amazing, but this is basically another chance for him to learn even greater martial arts. Lang cannot keep quiet about how exciting the exam rewards are, and Laika shows up, saying she has to take in all the knowledge she can before the time is up. Zeke is surprised that there is a time limit, and Laika lets him know that there is a time limit for those who will be entering the first floor. In addition, they can only borrow one book, but during the time limit, they can read anything they want freely, which is why it is imperative that one uses their time well. Laika then tells Zeke that she heard he had the right to enter the Dragon Hall. She expresses her surprise because she believed Zeke would want to take something from the treasury. Zeke confesses that he considered it, but at the moment, he believes that knowledge is more important to him. Laika confirms this, saying the second floor books are even rarer than the first, especially the martial arts manuals. However, she still believes that nothing inside the hall surpasses her thunderclap great sword art. Later on, they head to the hall, and the instructor tells them that they are allowed only 5 hours in the hall. He lets them know that maintaining silence is important. Laika suggests that they find the one book they would like to borrow and then use the rest of the time to read freely. Langus mentions that he is going to start by picking the martial arts manual that fits him within the 3 hours he has set as his target. Upon entering the hall, they realize that finding the right book might even be a hassle. The kids are blown away by the interior of the hall, and Zeke admits that the library is more incredible than he imagined. With a smile on his face, he decides that it is time to see if there is knowledge stored in the library that can surprise him. Zeke concludes by taking his time to enjoy and gather more knowledge. Soon afterward, Zeke is seen freaking out after getting so much terrifying information. He can't believe that this amount of knowledge has spanned over 1,000 years. He is so filled with information that he lies on the ground to try to digest everything he's seen so far. Apparently, around 900 years ago, a sudden crack appeared in the dimensional wall, which is basically a rift. Beyond this rift sprawled a chaotic other world, and its name was Kansai, the Chaos Realm. In this world, monsters known as Chaos were everywhere. And to resist chaos, the people there carried a special primal energy within their bodies. The Eldragon family was able to fight alongside these people against the chaos. Through the bonds forged on the battlefield, 4 powerful warriors from that world married into the Eldragon house. These 4 are Toporna, Fafnold, Livias, and Bahamut. These 4 became the ancestors of the 4 great Eldragon families that continue till the present day. Zeke realizes that the Anger Boar is covered in some strange dark haze and Laika's thunder aura too. Zeke finally realizes why he didn't recognize them, and this was because both came from another world. However, what he is actually more curious about is the thing called magic, which he finds in one of the books. Since it is a new technique from another world, he wonders why there is no book that teaches how to use it. He believes that something like this should be kept right alongside the history books. While he is busy yelling about the information ravaging his brain, he suddenly hears a voice telling him to maintain silence while he is in the library. Zeke is shocked that he can't see anyone, but he can hear a voice, leaving him to start wondering if this is what is called magic. However, aside from the primal energy, he can't sense any special magic, and he yells out in frustration. Just then, he sees the books moving on their own with the voice telling Zeke to maintain silence. Zeke argues that there is no way he is going to keep quiet in front of something amazing. He grabs one of the books, telling whoever is behind the magic to come out and show him what he needs to know. Suddenly, Zeke realizes that he is being restrained by threads, and he gets thrown out of the library because it is getting closed. Zeke manages to land on his feet, but he is totally blown away by what he just witnessed. He stands in front of the library screaming that they show him magic properly. Langus rushes toward him asking him what happened, and Laika also asks him what he did to have gotten his arse thrown out of the library. Zeke confesses saying he got a little too excited, and he asks them if they were able to find anything exciting. Langus excitedly reveals that he borrowed a martial arts manual called Cloud Water Spear Technique. He believes that he also picked up a sample of movement art inside. Celine reveals that she also learned movement art, and she borrowed a martial arts manual, Wind Blossom Sword Technique. Raymond, on the other hand, mentions that he practiced the Eldragon-style Guardian Sword technique in the library. In addition, the book he borrowed is also Eldragon-style called Guardian Shield technique. Zeke cannot believe that they all picked martial arts he created for fun in his past life. Zeke then turns to Laika asking her what she picked. Laika reveals that she went with the Heavy Wave Greatsword technique and the Heavy Wave Greatsword technique revised, which the 15th Lord of the family improved. Zeke is surprised to hear that the 15th Lord also created a Dragon Slayer combat art for Dragon's Breath. Zeke realizes that there were a lot of techniques created by him which are sitting inside the Dragon Hall. Sitting right next to these techniques of his are improved versions sitting next to them, and he wonders if the 15 Lord was the one responsible for all of these. Zeke has always thought coming to school would be boring, but with everything that is happening, he realizes that he is wrong. Before they knew it, 5 years had gone by, and they had all grown into daring teenagers. Balza is in his office when the Black Dragon Corps commander, Ein, shows up to tell him that a rift just appeared. According to their investigation, there is roughly an 80% chance that magic water exists inside the rift. Balza realizes that the rift appeared in the most convenient place for water magic to be there. Basically, anyone who drinks the water becomes a mage because the water has become magic water. Apparently, those who drink magic water gain a special constitution that allows them to convert true source power into another force, which is magic power. The new techniques unleashed through magic would bring a revolution to the world, and at the same time, fierce territorial wars erupted over the source of magic water, which is called magic springs. It has become an age of magic where the number of mages greatly determines a house's military strength. However, there is no single magic spring that exists within Eldragon territory. And for a house without ownership of a magic spring, there is only one way to obtain magic water, which is conquering a special rift. At the present moment, Eldragon mages are few, and this includes Balza. Basically, all of them who have magic are seasoned veterans who gain the power by conquering special rifts. Even with this, houses that possess magic springs overwhelm them through sheer numbers, making the conquering of rifts Eldragon's most critical mission. Ein tells Balza that just as he predicted the location where the rift appeared, the abundant dragon forest is quite troublesome. Apparently, sometime earlier, there was a small-scale border clash in the surrounding area. Basically, the abundant dragon forest is a large forest that lies mostly within Eldragon territory, but part of it extends into another house's domain. Those who claim further ownership of the forest and call it the Abundant Hound Forest are the Cerberus House. Ein mentions that the rift is mostly inside the Eldragon territory, but because of its scale and location, the special zone generated around the rift might extend into Cerberus territory. Knowing how Cerberus operates, Ein believes that they are going to come rushing in. Balza agrees with him, saying the Cerberus would definitely notice the rift. Balza then tells Ein that they have to prepare for a territorial dispute just in case it is needed, but he wants them to make a move before Cerberus catches on to the rift. Balza tells On to inform every dragon's nest that they are holding a selection trial. Meanwhile, Zeke is seen on the training ground going up against Raymond, Langus, and Celine while Laika watches from behind. The trio charges at Zeke at the same time, and after assessing their attacks, Zeke tells them what they are missing. Zeke tells Langus that he is tensing up too much, and this is killing the strength of his spear technique. Zeke tells Celine that she is always focused on speed and the number of strikes, but her power isn't carrying through, so she should find the right balance. Zeke lets Raymond know that he is doing well, but he is still too defensive, so he should get used to attacking. After telling them what they are missing, he tells them to come at him again. Turns out that Zeke is always doing this, and Laika is already used to the insane side of it. Zeke asks her what she thinks is insane, and Laika mentions that his idea of taking attacks head-on without using true source power is complete madness. Zeke screams out, saying the results of his training have helped the group grow stronger without using true source power. Laika then asks him if he can at least make them stop attacking while they are still talking. However, Langus and the others are even enjoying Zeke's training regimen. Laika tells the trio to stop calling Zeke a human because even the seniors call him the monster prodigy of the East Wing. Zeke ignores everything she is saying and asks her if she would like to join the training session. Laika mentions that she would love to, but she lets him know that there is something she would like to tell him first. Laika lets him know that he will be meeting kids from the other dragon's nests very soon. Langus is shocked to hear this, but Raymond is not really surprised because he already knew it would happen someday. Celine asks Laika if the visit is for the next exam, and Laika says she doesn't know the details. Zeke then asks Laika how she knows this, and Laika says this is something they can tell just by watching the instructors. Zeke realizes that he has never paid attention to things like this, and Laika scolds him for having trashy behavior for a future head candidate. Laika then urges Zeke to be careful because in the West Wing, there is also one dude who is being prepped for the head of the house. Zeke is not worried about this, but eager to know what the dude has in him. Some days later, everyone was gathered regardless of grade, and Laika believes that it is because of what they talked about earlier. Freya and some instructors soon show up, telling the kids to keep their mouth shut. She tells them that from that moment forward, for the next 3 days, they are going to be fighting the children of the other dragon's nests. The students are shocked when they hear this because this is something that only happens during the graduation exam, but they are about to do it. Freya mentions that there are various reasons, but she can't explain everything. She lets them know that whoever survives the match will be given a special mission, and the moment Zeke hears this, his face lights up in excitement. Apparently, each of the 4 halls, East, West, South, and North, will send 7 fighters in a winter stays on format. Freya then tells them to decide who will be their representatives for the fight. Later on, the top-year students gather, and they are led by Rick, who tells everyone else that the representatives will be chosen among them. Rick believes that there is no one who would object, but Laika raises her voice to object, saying that representatives should also have the right to qualifications. Rick scornfully tells Laika that they are talking about strength, and he is still busy saying trash when Laika unleashes her aura. Rick and his colleagues freak out when they realize that Laika is already a 3-star because they believe that she was only a 2-star. Laika tells them that she is ready to engage in a battle of strength if this is what Rick wants. Laika asks Rick if there is anyone among his colleagues who is stronger than her, and if there is not, she believes that they should pick from the lower years too. Rick then tells Laika that she is the only strong one while the rest are trash. Zeke cuts in, telling Rick that he is awfully noisy. Rick hears this and screams at him, asking him what he said. Zeke reiterates what he said, and he asks Rick if he thinks the upper years can contend against the lower years. Zeke ultimately suggests that they fight until only 7 of them are left. Laika tells Zeke that this would be too violent, and she suggests that they hold preliminaries for volunteers. Laika tells those who are interested to signify, and Rick agrees to this, but he believes that it is a waste of time. Laika turns to Zeke asking him if he is going to join the preliminaries, and Zeke says yes. In fact, Zeke wants Langus, Raymond, and Celine to join them. The trio is shocked to hear this because they are fighting top-year seniors. Zeke lets them know that there is nothing to fear because they have been training with him all this time, so it is time for them to show results. From the way Zeke is talking, the trio realizes that they have no choice but to participate in the preliminaries. Now that they have the trio and Zeke, Laika asks if there is anyone else who is interested. Most of the juniors are hesitant to join in because they believe that they can't go against the top years, but Zeke lets them know that fighting their seniors would give them even more experience. Nonetheless, no one seems motivated by what Zeke said, but Zeke tells Laika that they finally have the opportunity to know how strong the so-called top-year students really are. The top years, on the other hand, believe that Laika is the only one who can cause them problems since the rest are just 2 stars. Zeke looks back and notices that his squad looks really worried, and he asks them what the issue is. Langus reminds him that they are going up against seniors who are 3 stars, and Zeke lets him know that their training with him for the past years counts for something. Zeke tells them that they have all done well, so it would be better if they had a little more faith in themselves. Even though they are scared, they have no choice but to acknowledge what Zeke is saying. Rick soon screams at them to come over so he can teach them a big lesson. Moments later, Rick's guys are already out cold after Langus and his colleagues beat the shit out of them. Zeke is pleased with their performance, and he commends his squad. Zeke realizes that Langus has already gotten much sharper at deflecting attacks and spotting openings. Celine, on the other hand, handles the multi-strike windflower sword style pretty well. Zeke is also pleased with Raymond's tactics because he easily switched between shield techniques and swordplay. Even Laika has grown really strong, and Zeke knows that if they continue this way it would be beneficial. Rick is left in disbelief as he doesn't want to believe that there is a possibility of a 3-star losing to a 2-star. Zeke berates Rick, telling him that he is still saying trash even after he sees how the fight turned out. With overwhelming pressure, Zeke lets him know that age and number of stars are nothing more than indicators. Zeke mentions that strength in battle is simply determined by the victor, and if one is weak, they are going to lose. Rick refuses to believe this, telling Zeke that the number of stars is power, and this is what everyone knows. Zeke then tells Rick that stars or no stars, once the heart is destroyed, one dies. Rick refuses to acknowledge everything Zeke is saying in front of him, and he screams at him saying he is a top-tier student and there is no way a brat's sophistry will work on him. Rick tells Zeke that he heard plans on going easy on him, but he has changed his mind. Zeke simply tells Rick that he is already tired of the whole talk and he should just take action instead of yapping. Zeke reminds Rick that they are the only ones left and he would like to see what kind of martial arts he has mastered. This pisses Rick off and he angrily lunges at Zeke, telling him not to mess with him. He activates the Great Strength Fist technique, but Zeke casually punches him into the distance. Even after knocking the dude to the ground, Zeke teases him by telling him that he has trained really well. Meanwhile, in the West training grounds, one of the candidates for the next head, Venel Fafnil'd Eldragon, is seen beating everybody up, and there is no one who can even stand up to his strength. After beating the trash students, his aide, Alan, shows up to tell him that the selection is already complete. One of those who was selected is a dude named Retin who is a junior classman, but he is already 3-star. Vanille commends him, telling him that he likes capable people, which is why he is going to take him as a subordinate. Deep down, Retin is glad that he was acknowledged by Vanille. And as long as Vanille stands, the West Wing won't lose. Retin already sees Vanille as the next head of house because they will be the ones to achieve excellent results during the mission. Retin is excited that he is going to be a subordinate to the head of the family. Alan then tells Vanille that there is something he needs to know, and he asks him what it is. He whispers in Vanille's ear, telling him that Laika is among the East Wing's team. Vanille holds his head in frustration when he hears this because he believes that Laika is always getting in his way. Nonetheless, Vanille believes that no matter how talented Laika is, they are going to be the ones who will win. He plans to win, clear the mission, and then show everyone that the seat of the next head of the family belongs to him. Soon afterward, the students gather at the arena, and Langus talks about the crowd. Laika lets him know that there are so many people in the area because they are gathered from all the halls. However, she lets him know that some were eliminated during the exam, which means the numbers have already been cut down a lot. It turns out that those who failed are not in the arena because they are called pseudo-dragons, just like Langus' father. Nonetheless, Laika cheers him up, telling him that they were chosen as representatives of the East Hall, so they should at least be proud of that. Just then, they notice that Zeke is acting weird, and they ask him what the issue is. Zeke replies that he was only measuring the combat strength of the students in the arena. Langus is blown away when he hears this, but at the same time, he realizes that this is just a normal thing for Zeke. Just then, 2 members from the upper class who were selected in the East Wing, Rick and another lady, come running over. Turns out that, after the preliminaries, they realize something different. Rick tells Zeke that he might be a lesser dragon, but he sincerely respects the strong, and Zeke casually takes them in. After a closer look, Zeke realizes that everyone except the East Hall is a 3-star class, and in addition, there are no 4 stars. However, he notices that there are a bunch of students who have improved, and he is eager to see what type of skills will be displayed this time around. Just then, a girl with blonde hair like Laika, Sandy, rushes over and hugs her while calling her sister. Zeke is ultimately confused as Sandy gets all touchy with Laika, asking her if there is anyone who is bullying her. Laika assures Sandy that she is fine, and Laika's squad is forced to ask her who the new girl is. Laika then reveals that the girl is her cousin, Sandy Toporna, who is the daughter of the Toporna family head. When Laika and the others hear this, they almost pass out in shock because Toporna is one of the 4 great houses. Sandy rudely asks Laika who Laika and Ko are, and Laika lets her know that they are colleagues. Sandy admits that everyone needs friends, but she berates Laika for moving with a bunch of talentless trash. Zeke cuts in, telling Sandy that they will soon find out if they are talentless or not since they are all about to fight after all. Sandy is surprised to hear Zeke talk, and she asks Laika who Zeke is, and Laika reveals that he is a candidate just like her. The moment she hears this, she immediately figures out that Zeke is the illegitimate child that they have been talking about. Sandy expresses her surprise that an illegitimate child is still surviving, and Laika scolds her sister for being rude. Sandy is surprised that she is being scolded, and she reminds Laika that Zeke is her rival. Sandy continues spewing trash, saying Langus and the rest are not even 3-star class, which means the East Hall has poor quality. Zeke simply tells Sandy that she's going to trip one day if she continues looking down on others. Sandy is pissed when she hears this as she reminds Zeke that he is an illegitimate child with no backing other than the head's bloodline. Sandy can't believe that Zeke has the guts to talk back to her, and Zeke tells her that it's just advice. Sandy is about to crash out when the North Hall representative, Aegis Van Blade, steps in, telling Sandy not to cause trouble for the other teams. Sandy is pissed that Aegis came to interfere when she was about to let out her craziness. Aegis tells her that he has no choice but to intervene because the selection match is about to begin. Moments later, an overwhelming presence enters the arena, and this person is the Gold Dragon Order Captain, Teach Mentric, who is also known as the Dread Educator. Mentric tells them that the tournament will be a joint knockout match between the 4 halls. First off, the 4 halls will be split into 2 pairs, and the winning halls will then face each other in the finals. He adds that all battles will be 1-on-1 duels, and fighters will step out one at a time in a predetermined order set by each hall. Out of the 7 participants from each hall, the hall that defeats 4 opponents first will be declared the winner. He then adds that changes to the order of participants after the match begins will not be permitted. He urges them to consider the order of participation as part of their strategy. And for the last point, he tells them that those selected in the match will be given a special mission. Zeke hears this and smiles brightly as Mentric mentions that the special mission is of great importance to the Eldragon family. Mentric mentions that anyone who takes on the mission will make a major contribution to the Eldragon family. Venial and Laika immediately conclude that this means it is a major step toward the position of family head. After Mentric is done laying out the rules, he tells them that it is time to decide the matchups, and he tells the representatives of each hall to step forward in order and draw one stone from the box in front. The West Hall, which is represented by Venial, is the first to be called, and after picking a stone, he returns. When Laika sees Venial, her expression changes, and Zeke asks her if she knows who Venial is. Laika then tells Zeke that Venial is the West Hall's candidate for the next head that she mentioned before. Zeke becomes more interested when he hears this because he can see that Venial and the entirety of the West Hall have many powerful warriors. Even though the other halls are well trained too, Zeke figures out that the West Hall is totally different. Zeke also notices Retin, and he remembers that he was also skilled during the entrance exam. Zeke smiles because he realizes that Retin must have trained really hard, which is why he reached 3 stars at his young age. Meanwhile, some students in the stand are mocking Langus, calling him a loser, and asking why he is among the representatives. Raymond is worried about Langus, and he asks him if he is fine. Langus stutters before answering, but he assures Raymond that he is good. After this, the North Hall is called forward, followed by the South Hall. In the end, the East Hall is called forward, and Laika tells Zeke that he will be the one to represent them since he is the strongest. Zeke is hesitant, and he tells them that events like this should be taken on by the younger ones, but Laika can't believe that he is saying his trash again since they are the same age. Zeke just swallows it up, and he decides to take the responsibility. And when Sandy sees this, she almost loses her mind. She demands to know why Zeke is the one going forward as representative, and Laika casually replies that Zeke is the strongest among them. Sandy argues with Laika, saying she is clearly joking because Zeke is not even 3 stars. Sandy reminds Laika that the whole thing is a battle between her and Venial for the position of family head. Laika urges her sister to calm her nerves because they are pretty strong. After the representatives have all picked their stones, Mentric tells them to pour their into the stone. The South Hall and the West Hall stones both glow red, while the East Hall and the North Hall glow blue. Mentric then tells the kids that this will determine their matchup. Basically, the first match will be East Hall versus North Hall and West Hall versus South Hall. When Langus and the others hear that they are going up against the North Hall, they freak out because there is a particular dude among them who is basically built like a tank, and he doesn't even look like a freaking student. Laika is also worried because she would have to face Sandy in her first match, and Sandy is ready to crush Laika so she can remember her position and purpose. Laika also tells her sister that she is not going to back down, and it is slowly brewing into a battle between the sisters. Aegis then tells Zeke that he is looking forward to their battle, and Zeke acknowledges this, telling Aegis that he feels the same too. While the East Hall and the North Hall prepare for their battle, the other 2 halls sit back to observe what will happen. Rick is still fired up from the last training, and he assures Zeke that he is going to make sure that they come out victorious. Laika notices that Rick is pretty nervous, and she hopes that the dude will be fine. The first battle is between Rick and a student from the North Hall. The match begins, and Rick makes the first move while Zeke wonders how the battle is going to turn out. Laika tells Zeke that, with the way things are going, it appears that the battle will be tough. Zeke agrees with her, telling her that there are no absolutes in the world of competition. However, Zeke confidently says he is different because his victory is already absolute. Laika cannot believe just how confident Zeke is, and she reminds him that no one asked him if he was going to win or not. Zeke then puts the whole showboating aside, and he tells Laika that in terms of raw power, the North Hall fighters aren't different from Rick. Zeke believes that Rick should win if he fights the way he usually does, and Laika agrees with him. Laika mentions that it is their first time fighting in front of a huge crowd, which means the pressure is even higher. Zeke agrees with her, but he lets her know that Aegis and Sandy are a different breed. Zeke tells his colleagues that the 2 are close to 4 stars already, which means there is no way pressure is going to get to them. Zeke believes that Sandy would be using the same style of combat as Laika since they are cousins. Moments later, the first battle ends, and the North Hall comes out victorious. When the East Hall's next representative, Merlin, sees this, she freaks out because this means she has to win. However, Laika urges her not to be nervous, but this turned out to be a waste as she lost her battle too. Merlin and Rick both stand embarrassed, apologizing to Zeke for messing up, but Zeke tells them that they have nothing to worry about because they were only swallowed up by the atmosphere of the arena. Zeke tells them that if they were on a battlefield where life and death were at stake, it would have been a different story. However, he lets them know that the arena is a place to learn by testing their strength against others, which means it isn't a fight to the death. Zeke tells them that the failure will definitely become nourishment for them on the battlefield, so it is left to them to keep striving. The two roar in agreement with everything Zeke says. Since they have recorded 2 losses already, Zeke turns to Langus, reminding him that their next match is a must-win. Langus almost craps his pants because he was already nervous from the start, and Zeke is not helping matters. To make it worse, his opponent is the giant dude he was worried about from the start. Langus jumps in Zeke's arms in tears, but Zeke reminds him that he fought upperclassmen during team selection too. Langus argues that none of them look scary like the dude he is about to face. Langus can't believe that he is expected to defeat someone this scary in front of a large crowd. Zeke immediately realizes that the responsibility to motivate the guy falls on him, and he pats him on the head, telling him to take a look at his opponent. He asks him what sword his opponent is using, and Langus replies that it is a sword. Zeke then tells him not to think about anything else aside from the fact that he is fighting someone with a sword. He tells him that if he thrusts with his sword, it is his responsibility to deflect it. Zeke adds that if his opponent swings upward, he should pull back, and if he brings it down, he should step in and then thrust. In the end, Zeke tells Langus to respond to the sword the same way he has always done. The word always rings in Langus' head, and he finally locks in. Zeke is relieved to see that Langus has already focused on his target. He knows that the boy has extreme focus, but at the moment, he needs guidance to concentrate. However, the moment he is able to focus naturally on his own, he will be able to aim even higher. Zeke wonders just how much growth this battle is going to bring to Langus. Just then, Langus steps into the ring, and he looks really small compared to his opponent who is like a giant. The usual Langus mockers start making fun of him, saying he doesn't stand a chance, but Langus is already locked in and absolutely dangerous at this point. The moment the match begins, the opponent makes the first move, and he dashes toward Langus with a piercing thrust. Langus analyzes the situation, and with a cool head, he dodges the strike. He moved to the left, but his opponent roars at him, telling him that he won't let him escape. The dude continues swinging really hard at Langus, hoping to cut him down, but Langus keeps dodging. Celine is worried because she realizes that the dude is closing in on Langus, thus closing his preferred distance. With a worrisome face, Raymond asks Zeke if Langus will be fine. Zeke then tells them not to worry about Langus, but look deep into Langus' eyes. Turns out that Langus is fully focused, and moments later, the giant leaps toward Langus. But this is when Langus finally unleashes his cloud water spear technique. Langus spins his spear so fast that it counters the dude's attack, also giving him a chance to land a counterstrike. Langus' perfect strike hits the dude in the chest and sends him flying into the distance, ultimately knocking him out. The instructor declares the match over with Langus, and the East Hall emerges as the winner. Langus takes a deep breath and thanks his stars, but Zeke, on the other hand, is smiling really hard because he believes that it is time to turn the tide around. The East Hall then uses Langus' victory as momentum to push forward, winning their next 3 games. When it finally comes to the 6th match, which is between Sandy and Laika, the tension in the arena gets even more intense. It is pretty obvious that the situation is tense because they both wield the same Thunder Spirit, and they are sisters. Before the start of the match, Sandy expresses her shock that someone who hasn't reached 2 stars could defeat the North Hall's 3 stars. Laika reminds her that she told her earlier that they are strong, and Sandy admits to underestimating them. However, Sandy lets her know that she doesn't really care about that, and what she is interested in is the fact that Laika is not leading in the East Hall. Sandy tells Laika that she has already put herself in a tight spot by staying behind Zeke, and Laika assures her that she is aware of this. However, Laika tells Sandy that she hasn't given up on becoming the head. She points her sword at Sandy, telling her that she is confident that she can win, and Sandy decides to show her who is boss. Suddenly, Sandy vanishes, and by the time she reappears, she is already behind Laika. She almost lands her hit, but Laika reacts just in time to block it. The two then start crossing swords, but Sandy looks the better man as she pushes Laika backwards. Aegis is not surprised by this, but he is interested in seeing just how long Sandy can hold out for. Laika continues getting trashed, and she even gets cut on the arm. Laika is forced to leap backwards to try and catch her breath since she is getting overwhelmed by Sandy's attacks. Laika's colleagues are also worried because they see just how strong Sandy is, and Raymond mentions that Sandy trained Laika when she was young. In the arena, Sandy runs circles around Laika while scolding her for still holding on to her bad habit of swinging wildly whenever she is cornered. Laika angrily charges towards Sandy with the lightning flash slash, but Sandy overwhelms her with the scattered thunder. Laika screams in pain as she crashes to her knees, and Sandy tells her to give up because with her current level of strength, she obviously can't defeat her. Sandy is pissed at herself for not forcing her father to make Laika come to the North Hall. Even when staring at defeat, Laika still gets back on her feet. And since her sister has refused to give up, Sandy decides to teach her a lesson. She delivers several cuts to her body before leaping into the air, aiming to deliver the final blow. Langus and the others panic, and they call Zeke's attention to this. But he calmly tells Langus that Laika is about to break out of her shell again. Sandy lands her powerful attack on Laika, crushing the floor and leaving a cloud of dust. When everyone sees this, they all conclude that the match is over. But suddenly, Laika emerges from the dust, looking all battered but determined. With a smile on her face, she tells Sandy that she finally understands her Thunder Spirit Great Sword. Sandy is left stunned as she doesn't understand how Laika was able to survive because what she did was supposed to be the finishing blow. Laika agrees to this, saying her old self would have gone down from her last attack. But she lets her know that she has been training for the past 5 years too, and their fight is just beginning. Before the match started, Laika had a conversation with Zeke. Zeke notices that Laika is nervous, and he asks her what the issue is. She reminds Zeke that Sandy is her sister, and that she was the one who taught her the basics of the Thunderclap Greatsword art. In addition, she learned the fundamentals from the current head of the Turpina family, who is her uncle. However, whenever she didn't understand something, Sandy was always there to teach her, which means she is basically her mentor. To put it into perspective, she has never defeated Sandy even once. And even though she has gotten strong over the past 5 years, it is obvious that Sandy has grown stronger too. Even though she sounded confident when talking to Sandy, she is doubtful of her ability to win. Zeke then tells Laika to remember her training with him and to try to recall every day of the past 5 years. The moment Laika hears this, her facial expression immediately changes for the worse, forcing Zeke to ask her if it was that bad. Zeke lets Laika know that her bad habit is when her emotions run high, which automatically dulls her vision. He lets her know that the past 5 years were training to make her stay calm during combat. Still wearing her disgusted face, Laika reminds Zeke that he didn't hold back when he was attacking her, and Zeke says this is basically his charm. Laika cannot believe that he is calling that his charm when every moment of it was pain. Nonetheless, Zeke lets her know that the results of the training are undeniable, and she should now be able to calmly observe her opponent during battle. Laika agrees with him, but says that how useful the training is against her sister is the real issue. Zeke then tells her that she is going to understand once the fight begins. Zeke tells her that her talent of being able to see her opponent's movements will show her what kind of effect the training has had. Zeke still uses the opportunity to glaze himself, reminding Laika that she was trained by the strongest, who is obviously him, so she has nothing to worry about. Thanks to Zeke's short pep talk, Laika was able to ease off the tension a bit. Since Sandy uses the Thunderclap skill just like Laika, Zeke tells her that it is the perfect opportunity for her to carefully observe her sister's Thunderclap Greatsword art because if she does, she is going to grow even stronger. Now in the present, Laika lets Sandy know that she has observed everything carefully, and her Thunderclap Greatsword is her magic. She intentionally took it head-on and observed it closely so she could finally see it. Sandy is shocked to hear this, leaving her wondering just who Laika has grown to become. Just then, Laika dashes toward her sister, and Sandy is immediately overwhelmed by the sudden burst of speed. Sandy is left wondering how Laika is able to suddenly change her movements. While she is still trying to understand what happened, Laika continues dealing damage, telling Sandy that she now understands the Thunderclap Great Sword arts. Sandy doesn't want to believe that Laika has already understood it and can copy it instantly. In the stands, Langus and the others are already jumping for joy since Laika has turned the battle around. Zeke smiles, saying that fighting someone who uses the same technique teaches one so much. Rick then asks Zeke if he knows why Laika's movements suddenly changed, and Zeke reveals that Laika mastered her sister's Thunderclap Great Sword art in the middle of battle. He mentions that this is the result of their training, which is to calmly observe the enemy's technique while taking it head-on. He mentions that Laika used to lose herself during combat, which is why she only sees her own sword, but at the moment, she is different. He explains that Laika has the presence of mind to calmly observe her opponent during the heat of battle. by observing a sword art that is identical to her own, she has managed to reach a new realm. As the battle rages on, Sandy still believes that there is no way Laika is getting the jump on her, but she soon realizes just how wrong she is. She unleashes her thunderbolt, but Laika fights through it, emerging from the chaos, telling Sandy that she has undergone several physical training sessions with Zeke that almost left her for dead. As she leaps towards Sandy, she declares that it is time for her to unleash her own thunderclap arts. Laika unveils her new thunderclap arts, the Heavenly Thunder, and with this, she completely overwhelms Sandy. Sandy screams in pain, and before passing out, she admits the fact that Laika has grown stronger. With this, the East Hall is declared the winner, and even Venial is shocked by what he just witnessed. Laika then returns to her friends, and Zeke commends her for the job well done, but is disappointed that he didn't get his own turn. Laika expresses her happiness that the battle was decided during her own match. Nonetheless, even if she had lost, Zeke would have gone up against Aegis, and Zeke asks Laika if she knows the dude. Laika says she doesn't know him personally, but he is actually famous. With what she heard, Aegis is said to be the greatest genius he Vanblade family has ever produced. Zeke can confirm this because from what he is looking at, Zeke realizes that Aegis is stronger than the other competitors. Laika wonders what would have happened if Zeke faced him, and just then, the instructor lets everyone know that the East Hall's victory has been decided. In a shocking turn of events, he lets them know that the matches will continue until the end. They wonder why this is since everything was supposed to end once 4 members of the opposite team were defeated. Zeke also wonders what their end goal is, but whatever it is, he doesn't really care since he gets to fight the prodigy, Aegis. As they step into the ring, Aegis expresses his happiness that they are getting to fight even though the North Hall lost the battle. Zeke is surprised that the dude is that desperate to fight him, and Aegis lets him know that he is the East Hall's representative even when Laika is there, which has left him curious. Aegis says Zeke might carry the blood of the family's head, but he is still stuck in 2 stars. And Laika, who is 3 stars, didn't bother to be the representative. Thanks to all of these variables, Aegis says it has gotten him more curious to fight him. Zeke is pleased to hear this, and he lets him know that they really think alike. Zeke lets him know that he would like to fight him too, and the moment Aegis hears this, he becomes really hyper. Aegis whips out his sword ready to fight, and Zeke is just ready to have fun since it's been a long time since he fought a sword user. Aegis makes the first move and dashes towards Zeke in the blink of an eye. Zeke is ultimately impressed by how Aegis is able to close him down in no time. Once he's in range, Aegis activates his sword technique, removing the presence from his sword. Zeke is baffled and impressed by this, but he still manages to dodge the attack. Aegis thought he had Zeke already, but he was surprised that he was able to twist his body at the last minute to dodge the strike. Zeke commends his wordplay and urges him to show him more of his techniques. Aegis indulges him and unleashes another of his sword arts, Waveblade, which makes his sword movements even harder to read. It appears like a wave of water, and Zeke initially underestimated the technique. However, he is forced to quickly change positions when he realizes that the technique is quite deadly. Zeke leaps into the air to dodge the strike while commending him and telling him that he's not ready to be cut just yet. Without wasting time, Aegis changes his technique into a lightning-type technique, giving him more speed to close Zeke down. When Zeke sees this, he is forced to admit the fact that Aegis is truly a genius because his moves are totally unpredictable. Even though his attacks are fast, they still come with power too, making it a flawless and sharp strike. Zeke figures out that the dude will not be able to perform these techniques if he didn't train his body to the extreme. Zeke continues dodging, and at this point, Aegis is getting really impressed with the fact that he can't even pin him down yet. Aegis commends Zeke, asking him what type of training regimen he carries out, and Zeke suggests that he trains with him if he is curious. Nonetheless, Zeke believes that this is a conversation for after the training. Zeke then decides to finally make a move, and he dashes toward Aegis with a powered punch. Surprisingly, Aegis is able to easily block the punch with his sword and even absorb the force that comes with it. However, Aegis is impressed, and he tells Zeke that he outputs so much power that it doesn't even feel like he's a 2-star. On the other hand, Zeke is surprised that Aegis was able to adapt to his fighting style really quickly, which is far more than he expected. Aegis then asks Zeke if he's done observing, which is why he finally decided to launch a counterattack. Zeke confirms this, and Aegis is surprised that Zeke has already figured out his martial arts, but this means he doesn't have to hold back anymore. Aegis leaps towards Zeke, and Zeke assumes that he's going to use the same technique as before. However, he soon realizes how wrong he is when he senses Aegis' afterimage. At this point, Aegis has already closed him down, and his sword is slicing through his chest. Zeke only manages to dodge this in the last second, but suffers a cut on his chest. With a smile on his face, Aegis tells Zeke that he still has more techniques to show him. Being the battle junkie that he is, Zeke lets off a really big smile because the whole battle is just about to get even more interesting. Later on, Sandy wakes up to the realization that she lost the fight. Her colleagues rush over to check on her and apologize for losing their matches. They believe that they are holding her back, but she tells them not to blame themselves because it turns out that the opponent is quite strong. She motivates them, telling them that they just have to do better next time to make sure that they don't lose. She then assumes that the West Wing and South Wing have started their matches, but her colleagues tell her that this is not the case. They point to the arena, revealing that an incredible match is currently ongoing. Sandy turns to look at the arena, and she is stunned when she sees Zeke and Aegis going at each other like maniacs. Seeing the type of technique that Aegis is using, she realizes that he's actually fighting at full power. Seeing just how Zeke is easily holding Aegis to his full power, Sandy remembers what Laika said about Zeke being the strongest among them. In the arena, Aegis tries another technique, but it still doesn't work, forcing him to wonder just what kind of body Zeke has. Zeke then reveals that he put plenty of effort into training his basic stamina. He says martial arts might be important, but the fundamentals are just as important too. Aegis has no choice but to agree with Zeke, and he concludes that he will start training his body too. After observing how Aegis fights and his current potential, Zeke figures out that he's going to be an interesting figure in the future. In addition, this battle has finally opened his eyes to the difference between 1,000 years ago and the present moment. Basically, 1,000 years ago, the essence of martial arts lay in the act of attack itself, and the true essence of combat was expressing all creation through one's own techniques, which is why ether was just there for support. However, in the modern era, by materializing ether, one expresses all creation itself. This simply means the mastery of ether is the very essence of martial arts in the modern age. Zeke smiles boldly because it took him too long to understand this while he was busy focusing on technique. Zeke looks like an animal as he smiles in fun because he didn't expect 1,000 years of time to be this fascinating. On the other hand, Aegis is truly impressed that Zeke has been able to counter all of his techniques up until that moment. In the stands, Lengus complains about how the two have been fighting for 2 hours already, and it doesn't appear like they are going to stop anytime soon. Laika then tells them that the fight is about to come to an end. And in the arena, Aegis also figures out that Zeke is finally ready to take him down because he's done analyzing all of his moves. Zeke confirms this, but lets him know that it was fun while it lasted. Aegis says the same, and Zeke tells Aegis that he's going to show him his respect by displaying the insight he got during their battle. Zeke decides to show Aegis a new technique, and Aegis smiles with the realization that he never stood a chance. However, he lets Zeke know that he has no intention of going down without a fight. Aegis unleashes his powerful technique, and Zeke unveils his new technique, which unleashes a bunch of energy punches from the air. The whole area gets hit by Zeke's attack, forcing the students to even protect themselves. The display of immense power by both sides leaves the students in awe. When the dust finally clears, the instructor ends the match since Aegis' sword is broken, and he's lying exhausted on the ground. With a smile on his face, he admits that he still has a long way to go while Zeke decides to Aura farm, as he's declared the winner of the battle. The students are totally blown away by this because they didn't believe Zeke could actually lose the match, leaving them to wonder just who the hell Zeke is. However, Zeke's colleagues are not entirely surprised because they know what he is capable of. Laika uses the opportunity to berate Zeke for ruining the arena, showcasing his abnormal abilities yet again. Zeke argues that it was a resounding victory, but he suggests that they move past his match and focus on Vinyl's match. Zeke says the West Wing has the overall best quality, but it appears that the South Wing also has one strong person among them. Zeke was expecting a close match, but in the end, the West Wing totally dominated the match with Vinyl looking really fired up. Before the West Wing match, Zeke had admitted that he overdid his last attack, and it might take them a long time before they fix the arena. However, Langus lets him know that he has nothing to worry about. Zeke is blown away when he sees the arena repairing itself. Langus mentions that the entire venue uses a rare stone called etherlight, and by infusing ether into it, it can easily be restored to its original form. Zeke is left blown away by this, and he admits that using such incredible material to build the entire venue is quite amazing. After the match between the West and South, the instructor senses that something is wrong. The instructor doesn't think Vanille actually has what it takes to defeat the strong girl from the South, Lila. Nonetheless, Metric stops the match and declares the West Wing the winners. He lets everyone know that the finals will be between the East Hall and the West Hall, which will begin in 1 hour. Even the students who know how strong Lila is are stunned that she actually lost. Zeke also figures out that something is wrong because the skill gap between Lila and Venial is not that large, but for some weird reason, her power is extremely poor. This was basically why she abysmally lost to Venial. Zeke can see that the instructor also noticed this, but there is no one who actually knows what is going on. Raymond talks about how strong Venial is to have defeated Lila the way he did, but Celine believes that something is not right. Merlin tells them that this might be how it feels because it is actually their first time seeing the strength of the elites from another hall. Rick then talks about how strong Venial is, comparing him to Zeke and Laika. Rick notices that Lang is silent about the whole thing, and he asks him what is wrong. Lang mentions that Venial might be impressive, but what worries him is that the whole West Wing looks really tough and they have to go against them. However, Lang apologizes for saying something so weak before the match, but Merlin lets him know that he is actually right. Merlin reminds them that she also lost her match, and it is frustrating that they don't even measure up to West Hall. Surprisingly, Rick is determined to fight till the end just like Langus, and the others are able to take down enemies stronger than them. Rick's motivation ultimately spreads to the rest of the team, and Zeke is glad that they are all motivated now. However, he is even more worried about Laika because she looks disturbed since she didn't notice that Lila didn't lose in the most natural way. Since he doesn't know the full details yet, he knows he can't just tell Laika that she doesn't need to be nervous, leaving him confused about what to do. Just then, Laika leaves the arena, telling her colleagues that she needs to clear her head. She heads to the spring close to the arena to think about what happened. She is surprised that Venial has gotten so strong that he could easily defeat Lila. She knows that even Aegis would have had a hard time dealing with Lila, but Venial easily defeated Lila. Laika remembers that the last time she fought Venial was when she was 5 years old, and she lost. Since then, Laika has been training so she can avenge the defeat, and at this point she thought she already caught up. However, she knows that if things proceed the way they are, Venial's opponent will be Zeke. She is a bit relieved to hear this because this means she wouldn't have to fight Venial. However, she hates herself for accepting defeat without even fighting Venial. Moments later, Venial shows up to taunt Laika. Laika tells her to leave, saying she has nothing to say to him. Venial mocks her, saying that if he becomes family head, she might end up as his wife. Laika screams at him, telling him that she will be the one to become head. Venial then reminds Laika that she actually can't win the battle because she must have seen the difference between them. Laika angrily tells Venial to shut his mouth, but Venial urges Laika to admit the fact that there is no way she is beating him. Venial urges Laika to give up and submit to him, saying he's going to treat her nicely. Laika slaps his hand off, telling him to shut his mouth, and she angrily walks away. After she is gone, Venial turns to Alan, reminding him that he knows what to do. Alan then asks Venial what they plan to do with Zeke, and Venial suggests that they carry out their plan during the match. Alan believes that they are supposed to strike first since Zeke appears to be strong. Venial agrees with him but lets him know that Zeke appears to be sharp, and he might notice if they try it before the match. In addition, he reminds Alan that Zeke is always deliberately taking hits, so it would be easy to plant whatever they want on him during the match. Venial is also confident that there is no way he is losing to an illegitimate child like Zeke even without tricks. Venial assures Alan that they are going to come out on top in the match. When it is finally time for the match, Rick is the first to represent the East Side, just like the last time. Deep down, Rick is down with the fact that he and Merlin are seniors, but they are the weakest among the representatives. He is scared about the West Wing because they look absolutely badass, leaving him wondering if he can really win. While he is busy doubting himself, Zeke appears behind him and smacks him on the head, calling him a fool and asking him where his confidence disappeared to. Rick starts to stutter, and Zeke asks him if he is fighting to lose. Rick says no, and Zeke urges him to fight to win no matter the gap in strength between him and his opponent because this is what matters. Zeke's words are able to motivate Rick again, and Zeke reminds him that he is trained well, so he just has to back it with confidence. Zeke then decides to leave him with a parting gift, and he urges him to relax his shoulders. Rick is confused by this, and Zeke explains that the Great Strength Fist Art is a technique that gathers one's power into a single point. However, if one tenses up too much, the power one is trying to gather will scatter. Zeke shows him an example of what he is saying and urges him to relax his tense body. With Zeke helping him out, Rick screams out in excitement, saying he believes that he can do it. With this, Zeke sends him off to the arena. After Rick's departure, Laika walks up to Zeke asking him how he knows so much about the other martial arts. Zeke tells Laika that her question is pretty stupid because the only answer to it is that he is him. Laika cannot believe that this is what Zeke is going to answer with, and she admits that she was foolish to have asked. As they prepare for the battle, Rick takes a look at his opponent and realizes that the dude he is about to fight is pretty strong because he showed his strength in the first match. However, Rick has no intention of losing. His opponent notices his expression and mocks him, reminding him that he lost to the North Wing, so he is not supposed to have an ego. Rick argues this, saying he is not like before, but the dude doesn't want to believe this. The moment the referee starts the match, he wastes no time going after Rick with his daggers, telling him not to make him laugh because there is no way he's going to change in just a few hours. Using one of his powerful skills, he lunges at Rick, but Rick manages to block the attack with his aura. The dude is pissed that Rick even looked cool while blocking his attack, and he decides to go after him again. The attack is more fierce this time around, and he delivers a swarm of slashes to Rick's body, causing him immense pain. The dude starts to mock him, reminding him that he already said he was a changed person. At this point, Rick looks absolutely battered, and he admits that his opponent is crazy strong, but he has no intention of giving up. Rick throws a punch at the dude, but he easily dodges and counters the strike, cutting Rick. Rick screams in pain, and he soon finds himself in the vast space of thoughts, wondering how he is supposed to catch up to his opponent. Just then, he remembers Zeke advising him to relax and gather his strength in one point. Just then, his opponent dashes toward him again, and this time around, Rick is ready. The dude lands his attack, but suddenly, he sees Rick smiling at him, telling him that he now has him in his palm. It soon dawns on the dude that Rick has grabbed his blade with his bare hands. With the dude in close proximity to where Rick is able to land a powerful punch that sends the dude flying into the distance, only to be stopped by a wall. Without hesitation, the referee stops the match, declaring Rick the winner of the match. It initially feels like a dream, but when Rick finally realizes that he has won, he raises his head in the air and celebrates like crazy. His opponent cannot believe that he lost, and when he manages to crawl to where Venial is, he gets punched away in anger. With an angry face, Venial turns to the rest of the squad, reminding them that it is their job to crush the East Wing. Later on, Merlin climbs to the stage, and Rick cheers her on, telling her that she can do it. Moments later, the second match begins, and Merlin starts the match strongly. She unleashes her sword arts, the Spark Slash, but her opponent dodges the attack and counters with his spear. Merlin's attack leaves her open, and before she knows it, the dude delivers a fatal blow to her midsection, knocking Merlin to her knees. The dude doesn't stop there, and he lands another devastating blow while Merlin's colleagues watch in horror and annoyance. Even Rick wants to jump in, but Raymond stops him, telling him that it is going to be a disqualification if he intervenes. The referee then declares the match over with the West Wing emerging as the winner. The dude goes as far as stepping on Merlin to assert his dominance, but her friends soon rush over to check on her. Things look grim as she appears to be unresponsive, but Zeke stays in the rear while everyone is trying to resuscitate Merlin, and he looks insanely pissed with what he just witnessed. But Raymond and the others argue with him, telling him that he went too far. While they are busy yelling at him, he casually tells them that people like him, who are from the West Hall, don't show mercy to their enemies in combat. The dude says all they do is crush their enemies, and Laika walks up to him asking him if his conviction is Vanille's orders, and the dude indirectly tells them that it is. He lets them know that they are free to forfeit the match if they don't like it. He reminds them that the referee didn't stop the match because Merlin still showed the will to fight, and he has no choice but to break the spirit. Realizing that Laika and the others are just going to continue arguing with him, he walks off, telling them to worry about themselves instead of their friend. He lets them know that every one of them is about to suffer the same fate as Merlin. The next opponent, Retin, steps into the arena, telling them that they are free to forfeit if they want. He boldly calls Langus's name since he is the opponent, and he asks him if he is going to forfeit. He starts saying all sorts of trash, asking him if he wants to be toyed with just like he usually does back in the village. Retin even calls Langus a worm, which pisses Laika off, but Langus urges Laika to chill out, assuring her that it is all fine. Langus stands up telling the dude that he is not going to run away because he is finally ready to surpass him. Retin is surprised and pissed at the same time as he wasn't expecting Langus to have the effrontery to talk back to him. Just as the match is about to start, Langus suddenly hears Zeke's voice in his head, shocking him. Before he can start asking how this is possible, Zeke urges him to forget about it because he only recreated an experience from a few years ago. However, Zeke tells him that he is using the method because he has one piece of advice to give him. Zeke tells him that there is a saying that clouds drift freely, water flows endlessly. Zeke tells Langas to picture this scenario whenever he is troubled, and Langas is left in total confusion. It isn't until the referee calls his attention to the arena that he realizes that he was supposed to be fighting Retin. The referee then declares the second match open, and Langas makes the first move. He tries to hit Retin with his water technique, but Retin blocks the attack with his serpent assault sword technique while making fun of Langas. Retin blocks the attack and delivers a counterattack that pushes him backwards. Langas only manages to block the attack with his spear, and Retin mocks him, telling him that he is a weakling who was just talking trash. Before Langas knows what is happening, Retin has descended on him again. Retin unleashes his serpent slash that moves in the form of a snake, and it cuts Langas on the side, causing him immense pain. Langas is surprised that he tried to block the attack, but it curved out. Retin laughs at Langas for trying to counter his technique. Langas is determined to do so, and even when he manages to push Retin's attack to the ground, the counterstrike is too much for him to handle. Retin slaps him off really hard so that his impact on the ground leaves a crazy explosion. Langas's friends freak out as their comrade is being toyed with. Langas is also worried that he is in trouble because even though he wants to deflect Retin's attack to unleash a counterstrike, he just keeps using all of his movements against him. Retin notices what Langas is trying to do against him, and he lets him know that his own specialty is counterattacks while letting Langas know that he is more skilled than him. Langas doesn't want to believe this, and Retin casually grabs him on the head, telling him that there is no way the child of a pseudo-dragon could ever become strong. He tells him that in the end, he is just the same trash as his father. Langas tries to defend his father's name, but Retin screams at him, telling him that his father is a fake. Retin pushes him to the ground, telling him that he can never defeat him, who is a real dragon. With Langas on the ground and Retin kicking him like a dog, Langas totally loses his urge to fight. He only covers his head to protect himself while his inferiority complex takes over. He believes that he is still weak, but he wonders if he is really a fake. Just then, a memory of him and his father fishing by the lakeside flashes through his mind. His father asked him if he liked fishing, and he said yes. The man is glad to hear this, and he tells Langas that he also likes fishing while watching the clouds in the water. Langas is surprised that his father is talking about the cloud in the water, and his father quotes the same statement that Zeke told him before the fight. His old man lets him know that once he watches the cloud and water, he will realize just how small human worries really are. Back then, he had told him that one day he would realize it too. Now back in the arena, Lang starts mumbling the words, and just then, Retin grabs him, preparing to finish him off while calling him a fake. Suddenly, Lang's concentration comes into play, and he easily blocks the dude's attack, launching a counterattack that pushes Retin backwards. Retin is shocked when he sees this, but the referee is impressed, and he is hyped about the fight that is about to go down. The moment Langas gets back on his feet, 3 stars start glowing on his chest, revealing that he has finally broken through to 3 stars. Retin starts shaking in anger because he is not ready to accept the simple truth that Langas can stand toe-to-toe with him. Retin angrily lunges at Langas, unleashing his long-range strike, but Lang casually moves around like he is glitching, thus dodging the strike. Retin is shocked when he sees this because he was able to hit Lang with the same attack just moments ago. He wonders if Lang has seen through his technique, but he doesn't want to believe this. He continues swinging crazily at Lang, but Lang easily dodges everything. Seeing the way Lang is moving, Laika is left completely in shock. Zeke then tells Laika that Lang has taken a step closer to the essence. Laika is confused by what Zeke means by essence, and Zeke tells her that clouds drift leisurely and water flows with a murmur. But no matter what happens, they never stop. They basically change their form and swallow all force and let it wash away. Zeke mentions that he showed a glimpse of it himself during the previous battle, but it appears that Lang has truly mastered it in the fight. Laika is shocked to hear that Lang was able to master such a technique in a short space of time, and Zeke lets her know that Lang himself isn't aware of what is currently happening. However, there is no doubt that Lang's concentration is really remarkable. Before Retin knows what is happening, Lang has gotten close to him, and Retin is now screaming, asking Lang to get the hell away from him. Their weapons clash, but Retin feels the heat more, and Zeke smiles because he knows he's about to be crushed. Before he knows it, Lang's strikes become even more violent and overwhelming, making Retin's technique look like child's play. Lang's technique has basically gone wild, and he can't handle the overflowing current. Before he knows it, he gets struck in the chest, sending him flying into the distance. He hits the ground and passes out immediately. The referee doesn't hesitate before declaring Langas of the East Wing as the winner. Langas finally returns to his usual self, and he is left wondering what just happened. Laika rushes over, congratulating Langas on reaching 3 stars. She adds that Langas's win is also incredible, and the rest of the team joins Laika in congratulating Langas. Langas still doesn't know what is going on, until he looks down to see an unconscious Retin on the ground. He turns around asking his friends if he actually won, and they let him know that he sure did. Tears dropped from his eyes as he never expected to have defeated Retin of all people. Raymond and the others commend him, telling him that he pulled off an amazing move. Laika even compares the move to a water dragon that was ascending a waterfall, which was pretty incredible. While they are all raving about Langas' move, Langas himself doesn't even have a memory of what they are talking about. Zeke then comes in, telling them that the technique Langas used was the Rising Dragon Piercer. He mentions that it is one of the techniques that is recorded in the 2nd volume of the Cloud Water Spear style. Zeke commends Langas for being able to reach his current level on his own because he had only read the 1st volume. Everyone is surprised to hear this, and they ask Zeke how he knows this. Zeke lies that he caught a glimpse of it once on the 2nd floor of the Dragon's Hall, since he obviously cannot tell them that he was the one who created the move. The others commend Langas for his ingenuity. Basically, Zeke created the technique in his past life, but he doesn't recall writing it in a book. He believes that those who transcribed it for future generations must have split it into multiple volumes for storage. To make sure it was kept from the eyes of the inexperienced, the essence was hidden away in the upper archives. Nonetheless, Zeke is glad that Lang was able to carve the path to the hidden essence all on his own strength. They are busy chatting about Lang's win when the referee reminds them that they are still in the middle of the match. The group quickly disperses, but Lang's win has given them enough momentum already. At the same time, the West Hall is pissed that Retin lost, so the tension was insane. For the next match, Celine did her best, but she narrowly lost to her opponent. In the match that followed, Raymond put everything into it to make sure he came out with a win. Before they know it, they have reached the latter half of the match, and Celine regrets not winning. However, Laika assures her that she fought bravely while reminding her that the competition is decided by the first to reach 4 points. At the moment, they have 3 wins and 2 losses, so victory is within reach for them. They have won 3 already, and Laika tells Celine that once she wins, the competition will officially be over. Just as Laika is about to step onto the stage, Zeke walks up to her asking her how she feels. Laika lets him know that she feels like her normal self, but she understands that Zeke is just worried about her, and she assures him that she would be fine. As she walks into the arena, her colleagues wish her luck, but Zeke senses something strange that leaves him worried. It turns out that Laika will be going up against Alan, and Alan lets her know that he will come out victorious. However, Laika argues, saying she will be the winner. Just as the match begins, Laika makes the first move, lunging at Alan with overwhelming power. Alan finally gets to see Laika, the lightning user, in action. Alan manages to dodge the first strike, and he pushes back to put some distance between himself and Laika. Alan realizes that he might have lost the match if not for Venial's preparation. Suddenly, Laika starts to weaken as the poison Venial had planted on her earlier kicks into effect. Alan notices that Laika is already feeling the effect of what is happening, and he boastfully tells Laika that she can't defeat him. Alan tries to strike Laika on the head with her weapon, but Laika manages to block the attack. This doesn't do her any good as she is kicked in the tummy really hard. She groans in pain, which leaves everyone on their toes. Laika is left in complete confusion since she can't even release her lightning to fight back. She starts wondering what is happening, but Alan confidently reminds her again that she can't win. Before Laika knows it, Alan descends on her, delivering several painful strikes to her body. Laika is battered, and she soon realizes that it is not her lightning that is malfunctioning, but also that she cannot use ether. Basically, a warrior's body is deeply linked to the ether dwelling within them, and every single movement is enhanced by ether. In other words, if a warrior loses their ability to use during a battle, every single attack from the opponent could become a fatal wound. Laika finds herself totally exposed to Alan's attacks, and she is not even holding back. She gets hit all over. And since Laika can't even attack, she comes to the sad conclusion that she has to at least defend herself. Sandy Sue notices that Laika is not functioning well, and Aegis agrees with her. Zeke has also sensed this, but he still can't understand what is happening. Before Laika knows it, she loses her strength and she crashes to her knees while gasping for breath. Deep down, Alan is surprised Laika was able to last that long without being able to use ether. He is impressed by Laika's strong will, which is why she is on par with Venial. Alan turns around to look at Vinyl, and the expression on his face tells him everything that he wants to know. Alan then turns back to Laika, telling her that her time is finally over. He raises her weapon and goes after Laika with an overwhelming force. But just as he is about to hit Laika, Sandy dashes in and blocks the attack while yelling at Alan, asking him what the hell he was thinking. In the back, Zeke heaves a sigh of relief because things didn't just turn out badly. Alan yells back at Sandy asking her why she interfered with the match, and Sandy tells him not to play dumb because he was just trying to kill Laika. The crowd is left in shock when they hear this, but Alan denies the claim, saying it is nothing but slander. Aegis also steps in, telling Alan that his last move was truly dangerous. Alan asks them if they are doubting him, and Aegis tells him that if he doesn't want to be doubted, he should be more careful with his words and actions. Aegis mentions that it is clear as day that Laika cannot use ether at the moment, and to launch such a dangerous attack against her is crazy. Just then, Vinyl steps in to defend Alan, telling Aegis that he interfered with the match and then complains about the methods that they use when they are supposed to blame Laika for being weak. Vinyl mentions that in real combat, the opponent's condition doesn't matter because it is their job to completely crush them. He mentions that he and his people from the West Hall are fighting under the assumption that it is a real battle. Sandy yells at them, telling them that there is a limit to everything because the match isn't a fight to the death. Vinyl scornfully tells her that she is soft, which is why she lost. Sandy almost bursts out in anger when she hears this, and Vinyl tells her that they are operating like they are in a real fight. Vinyl confidently says they are even holding back, so they have no intention of killing Laika. However, he indirectly tells them that something inside Laika must have broken. Sandy almost goes crazy, but an overwhelming aura immediately hits the arena, and it turns out to be the referee stepping in to quench the fire. He asked them when he gave them permission to start chatting, and Sandy protests, telling the man that Alan launched a dangerous attack on Laika. The instructor basically tells her to shut her mouth, saying those who have lost have no right to speak. The man mentions that he is the sole decider of whether the match continues or not, and Aegis apologizes for butting in. The referee then declares the match over, crowning the West Hall as the winners of the match. He then mentions that everyone except those participating in the next match should leave the arena. Aegis carries Laika, and he tells her to take her sword. Langus and the others are worried, but Sandy tells them that she will be fine because she has already given her a recovery potion. However, it is going to take some time for her to recover, so they will be taking her to the infirmary. As they walk past, Zeke thanks them and apologizes for the inconvenience, but Aegis tells him not to mention it while saying he could see that he was also ready to step in. Sandy then talks about how weird the whole thing is because Alan might be strong, but he shouldn't be strong enough to overwhelm Laika the way he did. Aegis tells Sandy that things have been weird since the first match, which was Lila's match. He is pretty sure that Vinyl and his people have something going for them, and he can only wish that Zeke would stay safe. Zeke assures them that he would be fine, and he confidently steps into the ring. Vinyl enters the ring talking all big while telling Zeke that he has no chance at defeating him. Zeke ignores him and starts stretching for what is about to happen. Vinyl loses his mind when Zeke basically ignores him, and he is still talking about how much he is going to beat Zeke when Zeke reaches him and punches him in the mouth. Just one strike from him sends Vinyl crashing into the wall, leaving a big impact that scares everyone. Even the instructor is left in shock, and Zeke berates Vinyl for being so weak even though he is the loudest. Zeke stares down on him like psychopath, telling him that he is there to give him the real combat that he was looking for. Vinyl's comrades scream in fear as Vinyl is sent flying into a wall. When the dust finally clears off, Vinyl is bleeding all over, but he can still stand. He wonders how Zeke was able to survive his counterattack unscathed. Zeke, on the other hand, has noticed that he is trying to use wind magic, and he asks him if this is the technique that his great house uses. Zeke lets this go and casually asks him how he is feeling after tasting real battle. However, Zeke lets him know that he was even holding back. Vinyl is still screaming at him when Zeke appears behind him, punching him in the back of the head. Vinyl is knocked to the ground again while wondering what is actually wrong. He wonders how he is getting beaten around by Zeke. And while he is in the middle of this thought, Zeke appears before him again, punching him in the chest for getting carried away during a match. Vinyl falls to his knees, and he coughs up blood while Zeke casually tells him that it's been 3 times now. Vinyl asks him what he is talking about, and Zeke lets him know that he's died 3 times already. He reminds him that the first was his face, the second was his neck, and the third was his heart. Zeke tells him that if this were a real battle, he would already be dead 3 times over, and he is only alive because he held back. Venial still can't comprehend what is happening, and Zeke kicks him in the head, reminding him that he wants a real battle. Venial tumbles in the dust as if he doesn't even have any strength left. Sandy is left in shock, and she concludes that what they are watching is not a freaking fight. Aegis realizes that with everything he's seen so far, Zeke was just messing around with him. He believes that Zeke considered it an exhibition match because when it comes to a real battle, Zeke is a freaking monster. Back in the arena, Zeke stares down on Venial while asking him if he's finally understood how real battle works. With Venial's face in the dust, Zeke reminds him that he was the one who said it is important to crush one's enemies thoroughly. Zeke admits that Venial and his friends are most likely going to become excellent warriors. Venial starts struggling to get back up, and Zeke lets him know that the whole situation cannot even be compared to a real battlefield because there are instructors watching with recovery potions at hand. He tells Venial that his idea of a real battle in the arena is pretty naive. Zeke scolds him, telling him that he is only trying to look away from his own weaknesses. Venial gets mad, and he yells at Zeke, telling him to shut his mouth. Angered, his wind magic leaks out, taking over the arena, leaving everyone in shock. Venial is pissed that a lowlife like Zeke is trying to preach to him, and Zeke just smiles at him because he believes that he is only going through a rebellious stage. Zeke confidently tells Venial to go all out against him since he is his opponent. Venial loses it, screaming at Zeke and telling him to shut his mouth and stop acting like he knows everything. He unleashes his overwhelming wind magic, hoping to catch Zeke even if it is just once. The spectators are left in complete awe because of how intense the fight has gotten. Someone mentions that what they are looking at is the wind aura of the Fafnir family, one of the 4 great houses. Their aura is imbued with the power of wind, which is invisible, so one can't see it with the naked eye. Sandy hears this and mentions that it suits the family pretty well because they are a bunch of sneaky brats. Aegis tries to calm her down, telling her not to say such, but admits that it is pretty troublesome. He says it is a bunch of continuous invisible attacks, but surprisingly, Zeke is easily dodging the attacks. Venial screams out in frustration, asking why he can't hit Zeke. Zeke calmly tells him that he can't because he is able to watch the flow of the attack, but Venial doesn't want to believe this. Zeke proves this to him by exploiting another opening, and he punches him in the head. Venial holds his head in pain while resuming his attempts to catch Zeke. Zeke teases him, calling him a rebellious teen, and after some time, Venial tires out. Zeke teases him, asking him if he is finally satisfied, but Venial yells at him saying he is not. He tells Zeke that he is going to kill him for mocking him, and Zeke commends his tenacity, telling him that it is fit for a warrior. However, Zeke dashes toward him to punch him in the tummy again to let him know that his body has already reached its limits. Venial falls to his knees in pain. Zeke tells him that continuing the fight will only bring him pain, so he suggests that they end the fight right there. Suddenly, Venial grabs Zeke's ankle and he unleashes his poison into him. Venial stands up and he starts laughing, leaving Zeke to wonder what is bringing him so much joy. Venial then confidently tells Zeke that it is over, letting him know that he is finally finished. But Zeke still doesn't understand what is happening. Suddenly, Venial unleashes a powerful wind attack and Zeke gets hit. Zeke is launched backwards as the poison spreads through his body, leaving the spectators shocked. Aegis lets them know that Zeke's condition has changed, and Celine asks him what he means by this. Before he can explain, Laika shows up, commending Aegis's intuition. The others are shocked to see that Laika is already back from the infirmary, and Sandy yells at her, asking her if she is strong enough to leave the infirmary yet. Laika apologizes for causing them to worry, and they ask her if she knows what is happening to Zeke. Laika then says she doesn't know exactly what is happening, but she believes that it is the same thing that is currently happening to her. She mentions that earlier during the middle of the match, she suddenly became unable to use her ether. They are shocked to hear this, and they start asking why something like this would happen. Laika says she has no idea, but the same thing actually happened to Lila in her first match because she was acting pretty strange. Langus freaks out when he hears this because this means Zeke won't be able to use his ether also. On the battlefield, Venial believes he finally has the upper hand, and he starts laughing maniacally, telling Zeke that he is going to make sure he never defies him again. Venial unleashes a powerful wind attack, and he directs it at Zeke, aiming to finish him once and for all. Langus and the others scream in fear, but before the wind attack even gets to Zeke, he's reached Venial, and he punches him so hard that he is sent flying into the arena walls. Venial still manages to stand up, but at this point, fear has taken over him because he can't understand what sort of monster he is going up against. At the same time, Laika is not surprised that Zeke can still fight pretty well even though he can't use his ether, since this is the kind of freaking monster that he is. Venial is left asking questions on how Zeke can still move even after everything. Zeke senses the strange substance in his body, and he figures out that it's poison. But this freaks Venial out because he can't believe that Zeke was able to identify what hit him. This is basically a poison that should be undetectable, and Zeke tells Venial that he now understands the reason why those who fought him were easily defeated. Basically, this is a poison that only takes effect when ether is activated, and he commends Venial for being pretty skilled because the poison was able to hide from him until he eventually activated his ether. Venial is left in total confusion because the poison should have sealed his ether, and he somehow managed to unleash a strike against him. Zeke lets him know that poisons are meaningless against his well-trained body. In addition, he is disappointed that he thinks the strongest like him would waver just because his was sealed. Venial crashes out because Zeke called his ether-slaying poison a meaningless substance, and Zeke is surprised to hear that he was the one who created it. Zeke figures out that the poison is harmless to Venial himself, so it basically flows through his to affect others. Zeke commends him for being able to create such a revolutionary poison, revealing that it is quite admirable. However, Zeke does the unthinkable and detoxifies himself just by breathing out to let Venial know that such tricks don't work on him. Venial cannot believe his eyes when he sees this, and Zeke tells him that the poison was interesting, but it is certainly not enough because in the end, it all comes down to one's own power. Zeke tells him that the fact that he is relying on poison shows how much he still has to learn. Venial stands there in shock, asking Zeke what he means by this. Zeke then suggests that they end the match because he is pretty sure that he is now satisfied. Venial groans in frustration when he hears this, and he remembers how he has been living his life since he was a kid. Apparently, since he was small, his mother had always told him that he must become the head of the house no matter what it takes, letting him know that he has no value if he cannot become the head of the house. Back then, Venial was always pushed aside from conversations that involved the succession because he was not considered to be a genius compared to the other candidates. Venial was just an ordinary dude, and no matter how much he tried, he only got knocked down thanks to his lack of talent. He couldn't even compete with the youngest, which is Laika, not to mention the other two older candidates. His mother always made sure to scold him for being incompetent, and it was during these years of struggles that he finally found his own talent, which was poison. Venial was exhilarated when he finally discovered poison because he knew that as long as he had poison, he could fight. Venial believes that he is going to use this poison to become the head of the house. In fact, he believes that his mother would finally acknowledge him. But now that he is standing in Zeke's presence, everything seems futile. He yells at Zeke, asking him what he thinks he knows about him. He talks about how he was constantly compared to geniuses every single day no matter how hard he tried. He talks about how he was trash compared to the talent that they have, but they kept comparing him to them. Because of this, Venial has decided that no matter what it takes, he has to struggle. Venial angrily lunges towards Zeke, but Zeke blocks his attack and grabs his arm. It turns out that Venial only wanted to get close to Zeke, as he uses the opportunity to unleash a more deadly poison that is infused with his wind attack. Even the spectators are left in complete shock, but Venial doesn't mind because he is ready to do anything as long as he wins. Venial mentions that he is shit when it comes to combat, but for poison, he does have the talent. Venial laughs evilly at Zeke, talking about how he won't lose as long as he has poison. It turns out that Venial was holding back from using this particular poison, but at this point, he's realized that he has no choice. It is a form of poison needles and a deadly smoke that even he who created it finds so hard to detoxify. Even though he knows he is going to breathe in some of the poison, he doesn't mind because he is willing to go that far just to make sure he wins. Suddenly, everything becomes clear to him, leaving him completely shocked. Zeke is still holding onto his arm, and he has grabbed the poison needles with his mouth. In fact, he looks just fine, and Zeke teases him, asking him if what he just did is his last move. Venial freaks out, and he crashes to the ground in fear, leaving him to start asking questions like what type of person Zeke really is. He closes his eyes, waiting for the finishing blow, but Zeke grabs him, telling him to listen to what he is about to say. Zeke lets him know that he is missing an important point, and Venial asks what it is. Zeke tells him that to become strong, talent in martial arts or even talent in manipulating ether does not matter. He lets him know that the only thing that matters is his thirst to win because that craving alone is what leads to true strength. Zeke also berates him for saying he has no talent for martial arts, telling him that it is pure nonsense. He tells him that the only problem is that his weapon doesn't suit him. He tells him that the iron fan he is using doesn't fit him, and he mentions that something with a slightly longer handle would do. Zeke says an umbrella should do the job, but Venial is left in complete confusion because he has no idea how he is supposed to wield an umbrella. Zeke lets him know that he is not joking because the weapon might be rare, but just like the iron fan that Venial wields, the umbrella has its own long history. Basically, Zeke believes that everything and anything in the world can be used as a weapon. Venial is left thinking hard about what he just heard. Zeke slaps him on the head, telling him that he is lamenting about his lack of talent for battle. But considering the actual battlefield, Zeke believes that he is even more of a warrior than anyone. Venial is shocked to hear this, and Zeke tells him that just as he said, anything goes on the battlefield as long as he wins. Zeke tells him that he cannot protect anything if he holds on to things like warrior's pride, so he must use every means possible to win and protect what is precious. Zeke tells him that this is basically why his way of thinking is not actually wrong. However, the only place where he is wrong is where he is applying the said thinking. Just then, Zeke tells Venial to come to him, assuring him that he is going to make him as strong as he wants to be. Venial looks at Zeke like he is some deranged fella saying trash. Zeke points out the fact that he is stronger than him, and he assures him that under his guidance, he won't have to lament over things as small as talent because he is going to be the one to forge him. Hearing all of this, Venial is left completely confused, but suddenly, Zeke reminds him that they are still in the middle of a match. Zeke proceeds to deliver the final blow by landing an uppercut that sends Venial into the air. And knowing fully well that he is going to pass out, he tells him to come and find him when he wakes up. Once Venial is completely knocked out, the instructor ends the match. The instructor is left totally in shock at how Zeke was able to detoxify the poison in a split second. He declares East Hall as the winner of the competition, and Langus and his comrades roar for joy. Even Aegis and his guys clap for them because they deserve the win. With the competition over, the selection matches were also concluded. After this, Zeke and everyone who participated in the match were called to dinner with the instructor so he could explain their special mission to the other representatives from the other two halls are surprised that they are also invited to dinner when the East Hall was only for the winner. Aegis also has no idea and says this might be what they want to explain to them. While they are still waiting for the instructor, Zeke is already digging into the food that was served. Everyone stares at him as he eats with his 2 hands, and he urges them to eat too because the food might get cold. Laika asks him how he is so calm in such a situation, asking him if he is not worried about what they are about to tell them. Moments later, the instructor walks in, apologizing for keeping all of them waiting. He lets them know that they are free to enjoy their meal even though Zeke is already fattening himself up with the delicacies. He then tells the others to be like Zeke and enjoy the food that was provided. He tells them that this is a meal that is meant to reward them for their hard work during the selection matches. Once everyone has settled down, he tells them that it is time for him to explain the special mission. Aegis raises his hand, asking him if it is okay for the losing halls to listen as well, and the instructor tells him that there is no issue with this. In fact, he mentions that there is a possibility that Aegis would be participating in the mission. The instructor then proceeds to reveal that some days ago, a special rift was discovered within the Eldragon estate, and this immediately catches their attention, including Zeke, who is still tearing into a chicken leg. He remembers reading about the rift at the Dragon Hall. The instructor says he is pretty sure that they have some prior knowledge regarding rifts, but they definitely don't know about special rifts. He mentions that special rifts are the type that cannot be cleared by conventional means, and Laika asks him what he means by this. The instructor says this particular rift has a specific restriction, and the restriction is that only 7 people of 3-star rank or below can enter. If anyone who is 4-star or higher or even more than the specified number tries to enter, they will be forcibly removed. He mentions that unless the conditions are met, even the family head cannot enter a special rift. This basically means they have to follow the conditions to be able to clear it. He mentions that it is not a secret that there are 3-star warriors among the Eldragon soldiers, but they are currently short-staffed thanks to the recent surge in rift appearances. This is basically why the responsibility has fallen to them. In addition, in this special rift there is a high chance that magic water exists, which is necessary for awakening mana. The moment they hear this, they become even more attentive and curious. Apparently, by consuming magic water, one becomes able to convert ether into mana, which is essential for obtaining a body that is capable of using magic. Zeke hears this, and his eyes glow brightly because he's always wanted this. The instructor reminds them that the world is currently being ruled by the 8 great families, which includes their Eldragon family. However, the Eldragon family is the only family that lacks a magic spring from which magic water flows. To put it simply, the mission is to clear the special rift and recover the magic water. It is a very important mission where failure is not an option, but there is another issue. He lets them know that where the rift appeared is adjacent to the Cerberus family, which is one of the 8 great families. He lets them know that there is a possibility that they want the rift for themselves too. With this in mind, they held the selection matches to choose the most capable 3-star ranks and below. Upon hearing this, Aegis assumes that the 7 winning members from the East Wing will be the ones to clear the rift. However, the instructor lets him know that the East Wing might have won, but this automatically doesn't mean that the 7 will automatically be the recovery team. Because of this, he tells them that the East Wing, being the leader, will be the one to form a recovery team. He mentions that the reason they had everyone fight regardless of victory or defeat was to share everyone's strength and martial characteristics to serve as a basis for forming the recovery team. However, there were some who were unable to show their true potential thanks to Vaniel. The instructor then turns to Zeke, telling him to choose the members of the recovery team. Zeke is shocked when he hears this, and he asks why it has to be him. The instructor then reminds him that he is the representative of the East Wing, and Zeke argues that he never planned to be the representative. Zeke then points to Laika, telling her to decide, but he lets her know that he has to be on the team. Laika is surprised, and she asks Zeke if he is sure about this. Zeke tells her that if he chooses the team, he is just going to choose himself. Laika freaks out in shock, but knows that this is actually the truth. In addition, Zeke believes that it is good for Laika to know how to judge people with her own eyes if she is aiming to become the head of the house. Zeke then turns to the instructor, asking him if it is fine to hand over the role of representative to Laika, and the man says he doesn't mind. However, he lets Zeke know that leading the recovery team would put him one step closer to becoming the next family head. Zeke cuts in telling the dude that he is not interested in becoming the family head, shocking everyone in the room. They start asking him if he is serious, and Laika lets them know that Zeke is actually serious. Zeke reminds them that it is his business to focus on whatever he believes is valuable to him. Aegis mentions that he is not wrong, but at the same time, if he becomes the family head, he would have everything in the Eldragon family in his hands. Zeke confidently tells them that he doesn't need any of this because there is only one thing that he seeks, and this is the pinnacle of martial arts. This leaves everyone in the room speechless, and Zeke tells Laika not to worry about him, telling Laika to go ahead and choose whoever she wants to take with her. Laika acknowledges this, and she stands up to make her pick. Meanwhile, at the Cerberus family, the family head, a cold-looking dude with a big cigar and shades on, just learned that a special rift has opened in the fertile forest, and the Eldragon family, whom he calls lizards, are already moving in. The family head is pissed that he is just getting the information at that moment, and his attendant apologizes in fear, telling him that he is sorry. He reveals that they were misled by the Eldragon family, which is why the discovery of the rift was delayed. The head of the Cerberus family asks if there is something interesting about the special rift, and his butler tells him that there is a high chance of magic water being in the rift. Upon hearing this, he realizes why the Eldragon family would want to recover it at all costs. He then asks for the conditions for the special rift, and the attendant reveals that it is up to 7 people of 3-star rank or below. Family head realizes that this is not a difficult condition, but it appears that the Eldragon family has made the first move. He figures out that the Eldragon family is going to take all the slots. His attendant lets him know that the Eldragon family doesn't have enough soldiers to spare, but there is information that they are sending brats that they are currently training as soldiers. The family head is surprised that they are planning to clear the rift with a bunch of kids who are not even foot soldiers yet. The attendant confirms this and asks if they should also form a team of 3-star ranks and below immediately. The family head lets him know that it is already too late to form one now, but if it is kids clearing the special rift, he is pretty sure that Balza's heir would be among them. He then asks his attendant how many bracelets of deception they have left, and the dude reveals that they have 4 left. The family head then gives him a strict order, telling him that he doesn't care if they exhaust all the deception bracelets as long as they wipe out the kids trying to clear the rift. The attendant fearfully asks him if this is alright because they don't know when they will get more bracelets of deception. The family head then tells him that if they hoard them, they are just going to rot in the warehouse, so it is more sensible to use them all for the mission. In addition, the family head is curious to see how broken Balza is going to be when his child is killed. He smiles evilly because he believes that it would be so much fun. Back in the Eldragon territory, after Laika has chosen those she wants on the mission, Zeke takes the rest of his colleagues to the training ground. He tells them that he wants them to be stronger than before, and he mentions that Rick and Merlin will be on basic training just like Langus and the others. They are to run every day and build their muscles. He mentions that by solidifying their foundation, they will be able to handle more powerful martial arts. Rick and Merlin are already shitting their pants because they know that they are about to go through some hellish training. After he is done telling Rick and Merlin what to do, Zeke unveils a regeneration stone that the instructor prepared for them, which he wants Raymond to use. Apparently, Zeke believes it would be perfect to have after he remembers the properties of the stone. Apparently, the stone reflects any impact it receives hundreds of times over. He mentions that it is an object that cannot be broken without using ether. However, he tells them that he is going to punch it without using ether. The others are surprised when they hear this, and Zeke goes ahead to punch the stone normally as promised. However, he was able to block the massive recoil from not using ether with the shield he is holding. This further shocks them as to how Zeke was able to block the full force of the recoil with his shield. He raises the shield, showing them the damage on it, and he tells them that it is their task to block an impact head-on or to at least practice parrying it. Raymond is blown away when he realizes that this intense training regimen is for him, and Celine expresses her shock that a regenerating stone could be used for training the way it is. Zeke then turns to Celine, telling her that she has to try striking the regenerating stone repeatedly with her sword, but he lets her know that she is free to use ether. However, he urges her not to let her strike scatter and just focus on a single point. Celine acknowledges this and proceeds with the order given to her. However, by the time she is done, she's hit multiple spots already, and Zeke uses this to explain to her that focusing on a single point isn't as easy as it sounds. Celine agrees with him, and Zeke tells her that it is her task to train until she can reliably hit a single spot. Zeke proceeds to show Celine what he is trying to tell her, and she is blown away when she sees Zeke shatter the rock by putting all of his strikes into a particular spot. Zeke explains to her that her swordsmanship tends to prioritize the number of strikes, but it would be wise for her to learn how to value and aim each individual blow. Celine gladly accepts the training schedule, and Zeke turns his attention to Langus. Langus is already shaking because he has no idea what Zeke is going to make him do this time around. Zeke whips out a feather, and he lets it float using Wenkwei. Langus is shocked when he sees this because he definitely recognizes Vanille's technique, and Raymond asks him when he has been able to use Vanille's technique. Zeke mentions that it was after his fight with Vanille, revealing that he has been able to use it since he was hit by his Wind Ki. Langus is left in shock when he hears this, and Zeke tells Langus that his task is to surrender himself to the flow of the feather. Zeke shows him an example of what he is talking about, and Langus is completely shocked to see him control a feather that is so light. Langus asks him what he means by surrendering himself, and Zeke tells him that it is not about following the flow or catching it, but he must make sure that he simply surrenders himself to it. Zeke shows an example of what he is talking about by using a spear to follow the flow of the feather as it floats in the air, and Zeke tells him that once he is able to master it, he will be able to create the flow himself. Langus is completely overwhelmed by what he just heard, thinking about how much his next couple of weeks are about to become totally unbearable. Laika shows up, telling Zeke that it is time for them to go so as not to be late. Zeke throws Langus his spear, and as he runs off, he urges every one of them to train hard on the assignments he's given them. Langus burst into tears as he didn't believe he had a chance whatsoever, but Rick pats him on the shoulder, telling him that they just have to do their best. While walking over to meet the rest of the recovery team, Laika scolds Zeke for running off, and he apologizes, revealing that he was just giving Langus and the others their training tasks since he won't be around for a while. Nonetheless, Zeke is curious to see how everything is going to turn out because Laika chose the most interesting team, and Laika assures him that they are going to be fine. Laika tells Zeke that the team she's picked is what she believes to be the best. The two then rejoin the other five, Sandy, Aegis, Lila, Alan, and Venial, who are already waiting for them. The tension among them looks terrible, but Laika leads the line, telling them to follow her. After their departure, the instructor heads to Balza's office to inform him that the recovery team has left. In addition, he lets Balza know that they have received reports that the wild dogs have sniffed out the existence of the special rift. Balza is surprised that they learned of this faster than he expected, but he is pretty sure that by the time they arrive, the recovery team will have entered the rift. Balza's attendant agrees with him, but lets him know that he is concerned about something. Balza asks him what it is, and he reveals that after the rift has been cleared, there is a possibility that the Cerberus family would come to steal the spoils of war. Balza then asks the instructor about the capability of the recovery team, and he tells Balza that they are composed of the highest-ranking individuals among the three class. In fact, he believes that there will be no issues regarding the rift's conquest. The instructor assures Balza that the team should be able to hold their own against the wild dogs. Balza asks him if he is sure about this because they have 2 stars among them, which is Zeke. The instructor smiles when he hears this, saying Zeke alone is enough. Balza and his attendant are shocked to hear this, and the instructor mentions that he's seen all of Balza's sons, but Zeke is the only one with a depth he cannot truly fathom. The attendant reminds the dude that Zeke is just 2 stars, but he lets him know that Zeke has made him realize that the number of stars doesn't represent the true strength. The attendant is surprised to hear the instructor praising Zeke this much, and the instructor proceeds to say the first time he saw Zeke's martial arts, he felt the same sensation as when he first laid his eyes on Balza's dragon-slaying combat arts. Balza and his attendant are completely shocked when they hear this because the dragon-slaying combat arts are a secret martial art that is passed down through generations only to the heads of the Eldragon family. In fact, they are kept a secret, so it is impossible for an ordinary person to even learn them. The attendant argues with the instructor about the possibility of this, forcing him to ask if the instructor is sure that Zeke has mastered such a powerful martial art. The instructor assures them that he was also surprised. But because he has seen Balza's martial arts with his own eyes, he is certain about Zeke's martial arts. The dude boldly reveals that Zeke's martial arts are on par with Balza's. Deep down, the instructor even believes that Zeke's martial arts might have surpassed Balza's, but he doesn't want to overestimate himself. Balza then mentions that some years ago, he ordered Freya to look into Zeke's background, including his birth records from scratch. However, not a single piece of useful information came up, so there are no traces of him learning martial arts from anyone before entering the dragon's nest. The attendant is shocked to hear this because this basically means Zeke learned everything he knew on his own. The instructor sighs as he looks up, saying it is as if Zeke is the reincarnation of the progenitor or perhaps the 15th generation head. Balza is shocked to hear the dude talk about a possible event of reincarnation. Balza smiles and says, if Zeke really possesses the strength they believe he does, then the Cerberus family wild dogs have nothing on the recovery team. 1 week later, Freya is seen at the entrance of the rift with other warriors, and she asks for the vice commander of the Black Dragon Corps, but it appears that the dude has run off already. Freya sighs in frustration since the dude promised to send them more personnel, which leaves her wondering if he is doing just fine. Moments later, Laika and her team arrive, and the first thing Zeke does is argue with her that they should have run all the way at full speed. Laika tells him that there is no point wasting their stamina before the mission, and just then, Laika spots Freya. She is surprised, and she demands to know why she is there. Freya reveals that she is currently on a mission, so they shouldn't call her an instructor. Freya mentions that the reason she is there is to guard the area, which is a special territory. She reveals that some special rifts affect even the outside world, which is why it is important to form a territory outside. Seeing the energy oozing out of the rift, Zeke remembers the boar he fought years back and realizes that it must have been affected by the rift. Zeke then asks Freya why they have to guard the special territory, and she reveals that it is for the sole purpose of keeping the Cerberus family in check and obstructing them. Laika asks what this means, and Freya reveals that if they conquer the rift and obtain the magic water, the military strength of the Eldragon family will increase. So there is no way the Cerberus family is going to sit around and allow this to happen. She mentions that they are also there to clean up monsters that have been ejected from the special territory, and Zeke asks her to clarify what she means by ejected. Freya reminds them that the entry limit for the special rift is 7 people of 3-star rank. She proceeds to show them what this means by trying to push her hand into the rift but is slapped off by the rift's force. She uses this to show them that she is excluded, and the same goes for monsters of the 4-star rank or higher that were in the forest. Those without the qualification cannot even enter the special territory itself. And talking about the rift, it is on a first-come, first-served basis. Basically, until those who have entered the rift are completely wiped out or have conquered the rift, no one else is allowed to enter. Zeke tries this out by pushing his hand in, and he realizes that he actually has access to the rift. Even though it is said that the barrier cannot be broken by force, Zeke is curious to test it out. Freya then tells them that they have to enter immediately since they have no idea when the Cerberus family is going to show up. She asks them if they are ready, and they say yes. With this, Laika and her team pass through the barrier to the other side. The moment they cross to the other side, the deers affected by the rifts charged at them, and the team is immediately forced to engage. Instead of his usual iron fan, Vanille whips out a staff, and using this, he takes down the deer. Alan watches this from behind, and he commends him for a job well done. Even Vanille is surprised that he was able to easily take down the deer. Aegis, who saw this immediately, remembers that he saw Zeke giving Venial the staff. When Zeke was giving him the staff, Venial arrogantly asks him what the staff is for, and Zeke reminds him that he already said he is going to train him. Venial is surprised that Zeke meant what he said, and Zeke lets him know that he never goes back on a promise. Zeke tells him that since they are going into a rift that will provide a chance for real combat, he tells Vaniel that he is going to use the staff, but Vaniel loses it, screaming at Zeke, asking him if he is seriously saying he has to use a weapon that he's never touched before for an important mission. Zeke casually says yes, and Vaniel slams the staff on the ground saying he is not interested. He believes that he can't use a weapon that he doesn't understand. As he walks away, Zeke uses the staff to unleash Wind Chi, which immediately grabs Vaniel's attention. Vaniel turns around asking him how he is able to use Wind Chi, and Zeke replies that it is not important, but all that is important is for him to do as he says. Even with this, Vaniel still refuses, and Zeke is not about to back off. He tells him that he has no choice but to do it, and he starts forcing the staff on him. Vaniel even tries to run off, but Zeke pins him down, telling him that he must accept the staff. After struggling so much and being totally exhausted, Vaniel has no choice but to take the staff. He then reminds Zeke that during the selection matches he was going on and on about an umbrella, and Zeke tells him that he is not giving him an umbrella because he couldn't find one. However, the staff he has given him is a good substitute for an umbrella. Zeke tells him that they are going to conduct a training on this, but Vaniel argues, saying he has never heard of martial arts that involve umbrellas or staves. Vaniel says since he doesn't have the foundation for it, he has no idea how he is supposed to train from that moment up until the mission. Zeke laughs out loud, telling him that he doesn't have to worry about this because he has created a martial art that is tailored specifically for him. Zeke even goes ahead to name it the Spectral Wind Umbrella Art. Now in the present day, Aegis is surprised and totally overwhelmed with the idea that Zeke was able to create a new special art for Vanille. However, he can't even deny that it is effective because Vanille's movements are sharper than when he used the fan. To top it all off, it actually matches the characteristics of his wind key. This leaves Aegis wondering if Zeke was actually able to create a martial art that is solely for Vinyl. Moments later, Zeke commends Vinyl's movements and strikes, and Vinyl almost tears his own head off. Alan then asks if Zeke was truly the one who created Vinyl's martial arts, and Vinyl says yes. Alan is left speechless, leaving him to ask who exactly in the world Zeke is. Even Vinyl cannot answer this question because Zeke is just too complicated for them to understand. Just then, Zeke turns his attention to Lila, and Lila asks him if it is true that he created a martial art. Zeke confidently says yes, and Lila asks him how he was able to do it, and the only answer Zeke can give is that he is him. While Lila is already worshipping Zeke, Sandy butts in, saying it is quite impossible to create a martial art. Aegis then reminds Sandy that it is Zeke they are talking about, so it might be possible. Sandy mentions that she really doesn't care about all of these because the only thing she cares about is Venial not holding them back. Venial turns back in anger, and Sandy mentions that she is worried if Venial will be okay using martial arts that he is not used to even though he can't properly fight without the help of a poison. The atmosphere immediately lights up in flames as the two groups start arguing with each other, with Alan supporting his master. Sandy taunts Alan, telling him to do something about it if he is pissed. Realizing that the situation is about to escalate, Aegis comes in, urging them to calm down, reminding them that they are on a special rift mission. He reminds them that they have no idea what is going to happen once they enter the rift, so they have to throw away their grievances and cooperate. He asks Sandy if she understands this, but Sandy argues that there is no way she's going to understand someone who almost killed Laika by using poison in a match. In fact, Sandy doesn't believe that Laika picked the right team whatsoever. While they are arguing, Zeke asks Lila if she is fine with everything that is happening so far. Lila asks him what he means by this, and he reveals that he believes that she would have some things to share about Vaniel. And Lila surprisingly tells Zeke that she doesn't mind because she is just glad that she can participate in such a mission. Zeke laughs when he hears this, and he commends her for being a broad-minded person. Sandy, on the other hand, doesn't think what Vanille did is something that should be brushed off lightly. Sandy yells at Laika, asking her why she chose someone like Vanille, and she replies that she might not be as detached as Lila, but there is no doubt that Venial and Alan are strong, so she only made the important decision that is necessary for the mission. Alan hears this and commends Laika for being wise while throwing a jab at Sandy, saying she is dull. Sandy hears this and almost rushes over to Alan, but Aegis blocks her. Zeke is not surprised by this because he already knew that the selection matches are still casting a shadow over the team. With this, he fears that the team won't trust each other. Zeke can also see that Vinyl has his own thoughts, but it appears that he hasn't reached a resolution on the matter. Nonetheless, he is worried that such a mismatched team is extremely dangerous. However, he knows that things are going to be better if they can acknowledge each other's nature and become comrades worthy of entrusting their lives to. Moments later, they arrive at the entrance of the rift, and Zeke is left in awe because this is the first time he's seen a literal crack in a space. Laika urges everyone to stay sharp as they are about to enter the rift since they have no idea what they are going to come across. Zeke is the most excited, and suddenly, he senses the wild dogs entering the special territory. His eyes burn brightly, showing signs of caution. And when Lila notices that he is acting strangely, she asks him what is wrong, and he replies that it is nothing. So he suggests that they head out quickly. The moment they step into the rift, they find themselves falling from the sky, and they start screaming out of their lungs. Realizing that everyone is freaking out, Laika urges them to calm down, telling them that their priority is to make sure that they land safely. They are in the middle of this when a fluffy bird suddenly snatches Zeke away. Laika freaks out, and she starts yelling after Zeke, but Agos tells her to forget about Zeke because landing is the most important thing at the moment since the forest is already close. This leaves them asking themselves what they are supposed to do and realizing that the others can't even help themselves. Venial decides to help out. He activates his wind technique, and Alan supports him to provide a whirlwind brace to help reduce their descent speed. Aegis manages to grab onto a tree branch while Venial and Alan slowly land. The same cannot be said for the other three who land hard on the ground, and Sandy yells at Venial, telling him that he should have landed them better than he did. Venial turns his face away, saying this is none of his problem. Aegis steps in, telling Sandy to chill out because they are still in one piece thanks to Venial and Alan. Lila agrees with him, saying it might have hurt, but they actually managed. Aegis looks into the sky and realizes that the rift is not messing around because the moment they stepped in, they were already in trouble. Aegis suggests that they take some recovery potions because they have no idea what will happen next. Laika gets up, and she thanks Vaniel and Alan for saving their lives. Vaniel is shocked that they are being thanked, and he tries to act like he doesn't care by saying he only helped because he thought it would be a big problem if their fighting force decreased, causing the mission to fail. Sandy berates Vanille, telling him that he could have accepted the thanks gracefully. Alan gulps down a bottle of recovery potion, and he asks what they should do at this point since Zeke has been carried off to somewhere else. Vanille replies, telling Alan not to worry about Zeke, and Lila cuts in asking Venial if he is worried about Zeke. Venial tries to cover up his emotions by screaming, saying he doesn't care. Sandy teases him, telling him that he is not even honest with himself, and Aegis mentions that Venial is right about the fact that they are not supposed to worry about Zeke. Sandy yells at Aegis for agreeing with Venial, but Laika cuts in, saying Aegis is right. She is pretty sure that Zeke is going to be fine on his own, and they might actually be the ones in trouble. Sandy is surprised, and she asks them who they think Zeke is. Those who have seen Zeke in action before immediately come to one conclusion. Zeke is a monster. Aegis then tells the others that they will regroup with him later, but the problem is that he has no idea which way they are supposed to go. The shy Lila then speaks up, revealing that she saw a pillar of light in the distance when they were falling. Alan reveals that he saw this too, but because they were falling, he doesn't think anyone would know the direction. Lila casually points in the direction of the light, and Alan asks her if she confirmed the direction of the light when they were falling. She says yes, revealing that she checked the surroundings, and Laika commends her thoughtfulness. Laika mentions that the bird that took Zeke was also going in the light's direction. She suggests that they head toward the pillar of light while keeping in mind that they are going to reunite with Zeke. She is pretty sure that there is no way Zeke would ignore a light like that, and those who truly know him agree with Laika. On the other hand, Zeke is enjoying his ride because he believes that it is a good experience to have been snatched off by a bird. He thinks about Laika and the others, but he believes that they are going to manage. And just as they are about to reach the pillar of light, the bird drops Zeke toward its nest. As he falls from the sky, he realizes that the bird's nest has 3 hatchlings waiting for food, and he finally realizes that he was snatched off with the purpose of getting eaten. However, Zeke, being Zeke, beats up the bird and its hatchlings for trying to eat him. This lets him know that he has found himself in such a weird world. Just then, he remembers that there are monsters called Chaos in the rift, but because of how adorable the bird is, he doesn't think it is one of the scary monsters. However, he notices that the bird is in a bad state, which isn't a result of the small beating that he gave it. He also notices that the bird appears to be starving, and just then he sees a bunch of flying monsters heading in their direction. Zeke is not surprised because he has sensed their presence for a while now. The bird spots the monsters and starts freaking out. The bug monsters are led by a big grasshopper, and the moment they arrive on the rock, the bird becomes even more terrified. It finally dawns on Zeke that the bird was being tracked by the bugs. He is completely surprised that an insect is bossing over a big bird, which shows how crazy the rift is. Seeing the dark aura oozing from their bodies, Zeke figures out that the insects are the chaos. He assesses the situation and figures out that the big bug is a 4-star monster, while the little ones are 3-star. The bird, on the other hand, has no way to protect itself or its hatchlings. Zeke is left asking himself what he should do in this type of situation. He thinks of running, but suddenly, the weak mother gets up to defend its nest. Even the young ones stand up for themselves, and this impresses Zeke, who praises their resolve. Since they are ready to fight, Zeke promises the birds that he is going to lend them a bit of his strength. Zeke turns his attention to the bugs and can sense the immense bloodlust coming from them. It is as if their only purpose is to kill, and he finally understands why they are chaos. One of the bugs lunges toward him, but he grabs it and smashes it in half. Seeing how Zeke ruthlessly takes out the bug, both the birds and the bugs are left in shock. After taking out the bug, Zeke angrily unleashes the dragon presence, which overshadows the entire area, scaring the bugs really hard. Zeke then tells them that if they turn back at that point, he is going to let them go, but refusal to do this will only result in their painful deaths. After witnessing what Zeke is capable of and managing to survive the dragon's presence, even the chaos has no choice but to turn around and leave. Zeke admits that the bugs are pretty creepy even as they leave, and even though he would have enjoyed fighting them, he decided to hold back. He also notices that unleashing the dragon presence in his current state is still exhausting. He turns around to see the birds focusing on the bug's corpse on the ground, and he tells the birds that they are free to have the corpse if they want. Without hesitation, the birds descend on the bug's corpse, and Zeke figures out that the mother bird must have gone to the forest to find food for its starving chicks, but they were attacked by the bugs, causing it to flee back to its nest. It was returning when it spotted Zeke falling from the sky, and it decided to catch him as food. Even though he almost became bird food, Zeke doesn't mind helping the birds. He notices that they are still hungry, and he suggests that they go hunting to satiate their hunger. In fact, he promises the poor bird that he is going to train it so it doesn't have to struggle for food again. Later on, the pack of bugs that Zeke allowed to leave falls prey to the team of wild dogs from the Cerberus family. After wiping out the bugs, the team finally turns there to Zeke and the others that they are originally there to hunt. 1 week later, Laika and the others are still busy killing monsters in the forest while trying to find a way out. They have encountered so many monsters that have forced them to work together even though they still argue among themselves. Aegis talks about how hellish their lives have been for over 1 week, and even the shy Lila almost cries while saying she is already tired of fighting chaos. Laika, on the other hand, is still going strong, taking down monsters and even unleashing her thunder. She single-handedly takes out a bunch of monsters to make sure that she protects the team. Aegis is impressed that Laika is still able to move even after casting such a high-tier spell. Aegis can only pray that Laika is not pushing herself because she is the leader. After Laika defeats the monsters and asks if they are all fine, Sandy steps up in frustration, saying they are not fine because she never expected everything to be this bad inside a rift. She asks if this is how every rift works, but Laika lets her know that every rift leads to a different kind of primordial chaos. Talking about the primordial chaos, it is the chaotic and dangerous world that expands beyond the rift. Aegis calms Sandy down, telling her that they just happened to run into a terrible rift. Sandy refuses to calm down as she continues yelling until Laika comes in, urging her to calm down. She listens to her cousin, agreeing not to complain until the mission is over. Aegis can only thank their stars that Laika is available to calm her down. Aegis then says they have been in the forest for too long, and Venial lets them know that the flow of the wind just changed, which means that they must be close to the exit. Sandy asks him if he is sure about this, and Venial replies that he has no reason to lie because he is already tired of hearing her scream the entire week. Laika immediately orders that everyone sprint for the exit while they still can, and Sandy is the happiest girl on the planet when she finally sees the bright exit ahead because she is already tired of dealing with the annoying bugs. Upon stepping out of the forest, Sandy is expecting something pleasing, but she is struck with disappointment as they find themselves in a terrain covered with rocks. Sandy breaks down again, and Aegis admits that the whole area appears to have its own trouble waiting for them. However, the pillar of light they were searching for is closer to them. Laika then asks Aegis if the light is what she thinks it is, and Aegis assures her that there is no mistaking it. He mentions that the light they are looking at belongs to the Chaos Stone that the instructor taught them about. The instructor had told them that they would not be credited with completing the mission just by collecting the magic water without conquering the rift. He lets them know that they must destroy the source of the rift, which is the Chaos Stone, to close the rift. Basically, the Chaos Stone is the ore that is believed to create rifts in the world, but the teacher explains to Zeke that the stone is not just a mere source. He mentions that the stone itself can be considered the threat of the rift. Basically, the stone continuously releases a massive amount of energy to maintain the rift, and the energy released corrupts the ecosystem of the living world and transforms living creatures into chaos. In turn, the instinct of chaos is nothing but slaughter. They wipe out everything in their way until they have completely invaded the world. After this, they start seeking the next world, and they pass through the rift to access worlds. It is the same process that is used in encroaching on their own world. And after hearing this, Zeke admits that the Chaos Stone is pretty dangerous. Sandy expresses her concern about finding the Chaos Stone and the magic water at the same time, but Aegis told her that the magic water is always close to the Chaos Stone because it is clearly stated in their textbook. The teacher confirms this, telling them that their first mission would be to find the Chaos Stone. He mentions that the characteristics of Chaos Stones may vary wildly, but they all share the common trait of releasing tremendous energy. He lets them know that they are going to know this as soon as they get close. Now in the present day, Vanille figures out that they just have to head toward the source of light to find the Chaos Stone. Surprisingly, Sandy and her two most hated guys have not hurled insults at each other for a while. Aegis tries to maintain the calm atmosphere and mentions that it would be perfect if they could meet up with Zeke at the Chaos Stone. Laika agrees with Aegis, saying she hopes that Zeke has noticed the Chaos Stone. Vinyl screams at them, suggesting that they head to the Chaos Stone instead of worrying about Zeke, but Lila sees through him again, and she asks him if he is worried about Zeke. Vinyl yells at the girl, telling her to shut her mouth. As they navigate through the rocky terrain, Laika mentions her surprise that they have not encountered a single monster so far, and Lila says this is even better because she is already exhausted. Aegis, on the other hand, believes that something is truly weird because it said that there are powerful chaos monsters that always roam around the Chaos Stone. As they approach the stone, Laika tells the team to stay alert because the whole atmosphere feels eerie. Moments later, they arrive at where the stone is, and they are surprised that nothing had happened up until that point. Just by standing close to the huge stone, they can sense the overwhelming dark energy coming from it. Sandy then expresses her disappointment that they didn't get to face any monster, and suddenly, a shadow appears overhead. Laika alerts the rest of the team to this, and they quickly turn around to see something strange hit the ground, leaving a huge impact. When the dust finally clears, an excited Zeke emerges, greeting his estranged teammates. Seeing Zeke alive and well, Laika rushes over to meet him, and even Aegis expresses his relief that our guy is alive and kicking. Zeke mentions that it is wonderful to see them while saying that they all look lively, but Vinyl asks him what part of them looks like they are lively. They are in the middle of the meet and greet when Alan points to a huge scary dead monster in the distance, and Zeke casually reveals that he just killed it moments earlier. Sandy is left speechless when she sees the type of monster that Zeke handled by himself. Aegis asks Zeke if he really was the one who defeated the monster because it is the powerful chaos monster that they were told about. Zeke replies that the monster attacked him out of nowhere, so he had to kill it. It suddenly dawns on Laika that the reason they didn't run into any monsters on their way to the Chaos Stone is that Zeke had killed every one of them, and Zeke confirms this. Hearing this, the whole team unanimously agrees that Zeke is insane. Zeke then points to the stone saying he believes that it is the Chaos Stone, so he decided to wait for them. Aegis assures him that it is the Chaos Stone, and when he hears this, Zeke immediately jumps for joy because he has found the magic water. He points to the water under the stone, and Laika rushes over to check. They bring out bottles to take the water, and Zeke mentions that there is more of it than he expected. Aegis explains that one has to consume a certain amount of water to gain the effects of the magic water. Even with the water that they currently have, it might only be enough for a few people. Sandy is already tired, and she is not interested in whatever explanation that they have because she just wants to get the water and get out of there. The team starts to collect the water inside the bottles that have been prepared beforehand. In the process, Laika mentions that she heard that the magic attribute one can use is determined by the color of the water, but the one they are currently collecting is transparent, which makes it mysterious. Aegis agrees with her, but says he is pretty sure that it is still magic water. Vinyl and the others yell at them to stop arguing and just do what needs to be done. They are arguing about this when Zeke suddenly senses a strange presence. He immediately grabs Laika, pushing her to the ground. Out of nowhere, a magic blast hits the wall beside them, and Laika realizes that Zeke just saved her freaking life because she would have been toast. They look up to see the 3 wild dogs who have been hunting them. The leader of the team was the one who fired the magic blast with his hands, and he was impressed that they managed to dodge the blast. The team immediately gets into a defensive position. And while the others are scared that they are under attack, Zeke is excited because he has been waiting for them to show themselves for a while now.